Good morning, everybody, and welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. I appreciate you being here with us every Monday through Friday between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You know, bi-monthly, we bring you our segment Christy's Corner every other Tuesday inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin', your list of topics for the day. We have Christy's Corner here with the International Boxing Hall of Famer, Christy Salters Martin, as well as boxing photographer Pat Orr. The segment is proudly presented exclusively by PB&J's Lunchbox on 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. And here with us today as a special guest, John Moceyunas, who joins me from Don King Productions, and he'll be with us in video, picture-in-picture here in just a moment. And we have Christy and Pat that will be on the phone with us as the three will join us for Christy's Corner, followed by around 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. The Jacksonville Jaguars will join me on the Prowl, and my one-on-one conversations with the Jaguars will continue throughout the season as we have done for many, many years here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and the opportunity this morning to share with you conversations with offensive tackle Anton Harrison, defensive tackle and now switched to outside linebacker Dwan Smoot, strong safety Rayshon Jenkins, linebacker Caleb Von Chasen, defensive end Roy Robertson Harris, and quarterback Trevor Lawrence will all be in Q&As this morning, and we'll round out with the ingredients to success, proudly presented by Avicolli's in Liverpool, New York. So, with that being said, it is my honor and my privilege to welcome to the show for the first time ever John Moceyunas, as well as Christy and Pat. Good morning, everybody. How are you?
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
So happy to have you all here and appreciate you being here. Christy, obviously Christy's Corner, having your name there, very important to us to have an opportunity and a corner of the show every single month to not only speak on boxing, but to speak on positivity, to speak on how to respond to adversity and all the things that we can do to hopefully elevate our game on in the boxing ring, out of the boxing ring, and in life in general. So I always hand it to you first, and I know that John's a special guest here with us today, but just where you'd like to start with John, and maybe what you'd like to ask, or where you'd like to get things going here with our special guest this morning, John Moceyunas, who was so nice to come on to the show today.
Cool, absolutely. First and foremost, I want to give a big shout out to our featherweight Victor Hernandez, who scored a first-round KO win in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on Sunday. Huge win over Ira Terry, who was a great opponent, 28-28. He's been in with 5-0 champions. And to get that first-round knockout was a big statement from Victor Hernandez. So with that being said, John Moceyunas, let me tell you, this guy has been working with DKP for about Florida Hall of Famer. He had opportunity on TV. You name it, box. He's pretty much done it. Knows all the boxing people. Good friends with Kevin Cunningham down there, who's trained Hammer and is now training AD, and has some really good up and coming fighters as well. John's that boxing guy that you want to talk to and can talk about fighting from way back, and it's a lot of fun to have those conversations. But he's also that guy from Syracuse. So then I think his baseball coach, he was a baseball player at college. His baseball
Yeah, and Christy, we have Christy's audio kind of coming in and out as she travels. But you were saying that that John's baseball coach is one of my cousins, my cousin Patrick, and so. My cousin Patrick, if you don't know him, and John, I don't know what his hair looked like back then. I'm not 100% sure, but I always, and I don't even think I've told my cousin Patrick this, so I don't know if he's going to take it as a compliment or want to kill me when I get off the air, but I always thought of his hair like Prince hair. He had that like special hair that it was like the Jerry curls and whatnot. A lot of stereotypical Italian hairspray. And all of that.
Absolutely.
But I don't know what it looked like back then, John. So I'd love for you to paint the picture for me, because I only know my cousin Patrick as who I think would be a great Prince impersonator based on the mustache, based on the hair, based on all of it. So I'd love to get your take on it.
Well, look at what I'll tell you is this was about 19. I'm going to say I was 12 because we were playing at Wellwood. So I was about 12 years old. But I'll give you the closest thing: Eric Estrada. And sometimes Tortora would show up in his cop uniform, but he always I can tell you clearly sitting on the bench looking at this guy with the perfectly slicked back hair, you know, the mustache, and he was a tough guy. You know, I was a little intimidated by the guy, but he was a good coach. Good coach. I think it was 2 years he coached for me, but yeah, he had it together. He had that 70s Eric Estrada chips kind of, you know, he could have substituted for Eric Estrada on that show in the 70s. Would have been great.
Yeah. I see it all the time. Every time he would come in, and you would see it, like people in the family would get older, their hair would get, you know, gray, or maybe they would lose some hair, and he'd walk in there with, you know, a full head of just like jet black, Jerry curl hair. And I fought myself every time walking up to my cousin Patrick and just being like, you know, I want to give him a little Prince. I want to throw that at him a little bit, but
definitely,
he's an awesome human being. I never thought I would talk about him in this conversation, and, you know, to be here in Christy's corner and get to mention him, and I appreciate him so much. And he's been going through some stuff health-wise, so my prayers are always with you, cousin Patrick, and I love you dearly. I'd love for you to tell a story about my cousin Patrick that I don't know.
I don't think I have any. Let me just tell you, I'm not going to give you the details because this was the 70s and like anything went in the 70s, right? You know, I rode my bike to the baseball games, and it was, you get up in the morning in the summer and you leave and you come back at 6 o'clock for dinner. And my parents had no idea. My parents were totally responsible people. One time, Tortora heard us over talking about something that we were doing. We shouldn't have been doing. Unbelievable in this day and age. If my kids were doing this in this day and age, there'd be police at the door. There would be SWAT teams. But this was the 70s, so you just kind of. And he was overhearing us talking about it on the bench, and I'm like, wow, you know, we're building this certain thing.
Yeah.
And he said to me, waited till everybody was gone. He said, I want you to come down to the police station, and I'm gonna show you. I guarantee you, if you ask him, he'll remember it. And just the way he said it to me, I remember being so scared just thinking about it. What we were doing, we never did it again. Never did that thing again. I told my mom's still alive. If I told her that, she would be horrified. When she found out we had BB guns hidden in the garage, she was horrified. You know, she was, but this was like pretty bad. We were doing some stuff that was like, wasn't drugs or anything. It was just, let's just say we were experimenting with explosives on a lower level, you know, on a firecracker kind of level. And Tortora overheard us, and I remember him just saying, "You need to come down to the Fayetteville police station." And I was so scared. Yeah. And I never came down, but he never said anything to me. He never said, "Hey, you didn't come down to see me." He just left it alone. Yeah. I guess maybe I was one of the better baseball players, so I caught a break. You know how it was. But the only story I got with Tortora.
Yeah. I love how you told that story, because you told that story as someone who would be running for president. There were black lines in that entire story. There was so much. Absolutely. It was like, hey, it was a Saturday. The sun was out. Big black line, met with your cousin, big black line, had some explosives, absolutely. 3 black lines. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure he put the fear of God in you. That's what Italians do.
No, he did. I was respectful but frightened of him as he was telling me with his gun. You know, we never even saw a guy with a gun, but he came to the games with the gun and the uniform on, in those polyester Fayetteville police outfits in the middle of the summer, not breaking even a sweat, and the hair not moving, the mustache in place, and the tough guy image. We had respect for him. I can tell you that much.
I'll tell you this: if coaches had guns, I think maybe some parents would not say some things in the stands. I think he was smart in that case. He's like, you know what? I'm a cop. I'm going to bring my gun to practice, and I'm going to bring my gun to the games, and let's see if a parent has an issue with the way that I coach. So
yeah, it was different back then.
Definitely.
Didn't happen.
So Pat Orr's on here with us, the owner of PB&J's Lunchbox on 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York, and of course a boxing photographer of many years. Pat, do you have a favorite moment in your world of boxing photography, and anything that would have connected back to John Moceyunas?
Well, I don't know if I have a favorite moment. I did a lot of Don King shows, so I definitely crossed paths with John, but didn't know him until Christy Martin fight. So I'm sure he has some pretty incredible stories to tell about boxing. My first experience with Don King was I was at the Mirage in Vegas, and I believe it was Julio Chavez fight. And I can remember going into the press room and seeing a big cooler full of beer, Corona beer. I was like, dang, we only get water and soda at press conferences usually and stuff and press rooms. And I was like, Don King knows how to do it, you know? But his fights were always a production, and I know that John worked his ass off for him because I saw him work at Christy's fight, and I go, wow, imagine at Don King's, he works even harder. But he makes the production go on, and I know he's got some good stories about fighters. I know he's been to the Boxing Hall of Fame. So I don't know if I have a favorite moment. I used to like them all. You know, going to Vegas was a huge thing, and just seeing the fighters that I did was amazing. It was just amazing. They were a production, but they were a good show. Probably my most exciting one might have been Tyson Holyfield, when Holyfield knocked Tyson down. That was an event. It was an incredible event.
John, for you to kind of go back to the beginning of this journey, how do you cross paths with the ginormous personality, if I may say, that is Don King? How does this life connect with you talking about, we were talking off the air that you're from Central New York, you went to FM. How do you find your way into Don King Productions and cross paths with who some consider to be the greatest promoter, not of boxing, but one of the greatest promoters of anything ever?
So I moved to Florida, packed up and moved to Florida from upstate New York in 1989. And I was working down there. I got a job down in Fort Lauderdale, scratching out a living. And my wife at the time, her mother had a close friend who was offered the job. When Don King packed up his office in 1993, 92, 93, and moved to South Florida, he wanted to get out of New York City. I'm making presumptions here on them, but that's the story. And he wanted to hire like completely new staff and sort of start from scratch. So this person had gotten a job offer from a headhunter and said, well, they have this job at accounts receivable. And she said, well, I have a lot of experience, but this is not for me. But I know a guy who is the perfect guy for this job. So the headhunter interviewed me and didn't tell me who it was. Just said it's in the sports industry. And I remember just before I went for the interview, she said where it is, 871 Oak Park Boulevard, and it's Don King. And I remember like gulping, going, what? And I went in for the interview, and I'm just like, you know, like, I don't care what it is. I want this job. I will. So I interviewed with Marjorie Zuckerman, who is still there today, and Steve Platt, who was the CEO at the time, and I got the job. And I remember, and they sent me up to New York City because he still had the office on 32 East 69th Street. And I started, and I remember just being in awe of the whole situation, going, you got to be kidding me, man. I'm a huge boxing fan. Played baseball in high school and was a wrestler, and I went to college on a scholarship for baseball, but I had a tenuous relationship with that sport. But I always loved boxing. When I got it, I remember going, oh my God, this is like everything. Every day I would go into work, it was awesome. And I'll tell you, for most of the career I had there, every day I went into work, people say, how was it? And I go, it was never a dull day. I am 30 years and a month into this job, and it's still exciting. Right around 93, Christy came into our office down there, I met her along the way, became a fanboy of Christy, went to a lot of her fights. But wow, like if you're a boxing fan, ain't when I went to my 20th reunion, I got elected the guy with the coolest job, which was true. So it's been, if you're a boxing fan like me and you get a job like this, there's nothing better than if you're a boxing fan to see what I've been able to see, travel around the world. And then, it wasn't about a year before I actually, maybe less than a year before I actually saw Don King. I never forget it. He came down the stairs. There was a door right by us. He had his gray suit on with back then it was the 90s. He had the vest on underneath it. And he just kind of walked through. And I remember like freezing and looking at him going, this is a guy I've been looking at growing up when I was a kid. I specifically remember him sitting in the audience. I can remember as clear as anything sitting in Fayetteville watching the Ali Jimmy Young fight. It was on TV. And I was always kind of fascinated with Don King. He was a character who was bigger than life. And when I saw him, he's a big guy for the first time, I just kind of looked and I was like, and the only thing that eclipsed that was meeting Ali in 1996 in Syracuse when Don got inducted to the Hall of Fame. That was like looking at, the closest thing for me is like looking at Jesus Christ himself. There was an aura around him. Then I got to take a picture with him, and I found the video I have actually. Somebody took a video of me standing with Muhammad Ali. I remember thinking to myself, if I die tomorrow, my life is complete. This is like the most awesome thing on the planet, is just to meet these guys and be around them. And now, 30 years in, work with them, and it's still great. Christy will tell you, I'm jacked up when I'm at these fights. I'm still excited. We have to work hard, but it's nothing. There's nothing better than working in this boxing business. It's fun.
I have so many questions, and I will ask them, but I want to go back to Christy here. Inside of Christy's Corner, proudly presented by PB&J's Lunchbox on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Christy, do you remember going in? I mean, you and I have talked about going into Don King's office before, but your first interaction with John, when that was and what that moment was like, can you go back to when this relationship started and this work relationship as well as friendship, that bond started with John Moceyunas for you?
I can't remember the exact meeting of John the first time, but it just seems like with my Don King years, it was always, John was always part of the events and part of the family of Don King Productions, promotions. But we've worked, we've built a friendship. And so John was actually in the courtroom during the trial, one part of the trial with Jim, with Jim Martin. So our relationship goes way past boxing. We work together with LDL TV, which John owns, and puts out the streaming of amateur events where I would commentate. So he's got me hooked up to come down November 4th to work with DKP to do the commentating on DK show, pro show. So it's exciting. He's always plugging me in. We have a great relationship, and I'm just moving forward.
And having that relationship, Christy, with John, what can you say about, like he said, he gets jacked up, the passion that he has, that passion that you've had to help boxers, to move people along, to bring people forward. I've gotten to see it firsthand when you were out at Turning Stone, and the passion that you take with that and how you feel about the ring, how you are around the ring to this day. What can you say about that combined passion? When you see John's, you have yours, and just that willingness and that desire and that want to help somebody else have a good career, have a good life, and be able to be in this sport that they love.
Right, absolutely. And that's what I think we're a good team. We work together to make stuff happen. John's done many of my pro shows on the live stream side. Actually just did the Myrtle Beach show that we had. So hopefully we'll continue to work and together and move forward. But I know one thing, no matter what, if boxing goes away today or tomorrow, we're always going to be friends. And I appreciate the friendship actually way more than the boxing, because the people that are going to ride with you during the good times and the bad times are the most important.
Yes, absolutely. And John, you spoke about meeting Muhammad Ali and the aura that is around Muhammad. To bring us in there and let me be a fly on the wall, I never had the opportunity to cross paths with Muhammad Ali, but I have moments where I was smiling when you were talking about this because I can understand where you're coming from, and I can understand that feeling and something that it does to you that you just can't 100% fully describe, but it's something that you'll never forget. To go back into that moment, paint us a bigger picture of what that was like, what he was like, and how this experience kind of maybe affected you as you move forward in boxing and in life.
Well, yeah, that's one of those moments where it's just printed in your mind. I can remember the whole situation. We were over at I want to say it was the Holiday Inn, but it was in Syracuse. I flew there with the whole DKP. He flew everybody, plus 30 boxers came. There was Larry Holmes and Ali and a whole bunch of world champions. And I'd only been there a couple of years, so I was sitting with the accounting people. We were sitting in the hotel, and Don had arranged for a sort of a dinner, and it was just closed for all these special guests. And all the boxers were there. It was incredible. But everybody was kind of waiting for Muhammad Ali. Remember, I was sitting at a table with three of the other people that I worked with in the accounting department. And then he came in. He walked in. And it was exactly what everybody says. He walks in, and it almost is like, there's almost like an aura around him. And at this time, this is 96 or 97, I think it was. He had begun to shuffle, not in the way he used to shuffle in the ring. He was shuffling, and his speech was slurred. But he was still quite elegant, good-looking guy with a suit on.
Yeah.
And he comes in, and we stared at him. You just couldn't stop staring at him. It was like, crazy. Everybody is staring at him. Everybody's looking at him in the room. And then they proceeded to allow people to come up and take pictures. So I was with two other girls that were in the accounting department. We were all dressed, very well, suits on and everything, and they had long dresses on. And I said, you guys, you got to go up and take a picture with Ali. You got to do it. So I kind of made my way around to the side, and Don was with Larry Holmes, and Ali was just kind of standing, and people came up and they were taking pictures and stuff. And I'm up in front facing them, and I'm motioning to them to come up. And Katrina was the accounts payable person at the time, and she was all dressed up, and she was trying to be cool and everything. And then Ali kind of stopped, and he saw the two girls that I work with dressed up, and he just looked up, and he was slow, and he was shuffling and everything. And then he got this look in his eyes. His eyes got big, game face on, and he just motioned over to come over. And I'm in the back going, come on, get up here. And Katrina comes up first, and then the other girl, Giselle, came up, and Ali took their hands, and he kissed their hands, and then he kissed them gently on the cheek. Just the coolest, like exactly what you would expect from the greatest, like total cool. And he took pictures and everything. And then he kisses them goodbye and stuff. And then I'm standing there, and I go, okay. And I go up to him, and I look at him. I said, "Not gonna kiss me, are you, champ?" And he looks at me. He just looked, and he didn't say anything. And his eyes went down, and he smirked, and he went like this. He says, "No." and he takes my hand, and he shakes my hand. We have several pictures along the way where I was just like, and I felt like I couldn't even breathe. It was like literally you were with royalty, you were with a deity. And he shook my hand, and he mumbled, "Thank you," he said to me after he shook my hand. And I remember just saying, oh my God, Ali just said thank you to me. And we took the pictures, and then later on I found in the library, as I digitized Don's library, I found the actual video of the whole scene. And I was like, wow, it was everything that I thought. In my head, it was correct. So, and I never forgot it. I will never forget that. I never saw him again.
Yeah.
I was devastated when he passed. I remember this other thing, which was really interesting. On Facebook, when Facebook disclosed that you could have all the information that they had collected on you, I downloaded the 800 megabyte file. And I looked at it, and it had all these categories, and it said, in this file from Facebook, the most important person in John's life, they actually had this along with all this other information they collected on you. Yeah. It said Muhammad Ali. At the top, it was right near the top of it. It said the most important person in your life. Not my dad or my mom or my wife or anything. It said Muhammad Ali. And I was like, well, there you go. It just confirmed, how much I love that guy. And it was What a great life that guy has. I still go back. I watched the, if you ever watched the funeral with Billy Crystal doing the eulogy, it's just everything was fantastic about it. I'm gonna go see his grave sometime too. I heard that was a pretty cool thing to do in Louisville.
Yeah, and John, I mean, you brought that up, and I'm sitting here, and I love this. And people ask me, why do you broadcast? Why do you have a show? Why did you choose to do all this? It's for moments like that. Like, I'm sitting on the edge of my seat, and the way you told that story, I was sitting in the banquet. I was sitting in the room. I was looking at you while this was happening, and I'm sitting in my seat going, when do I get to talk to Ali? You put us in that room so beautifully, and you described the story with him and just who he was, and you can see it, right? You can see him.
Yeah, and I want to tell you one other thing that I left out, which was kind of funny. My bag got stolen on the airplane. I don't know why. I checked it. I had a video camera and a still camera. They stole it. In the video camera, for some dumb reason, I had the birth of my daughter in that video camera. So they stole my bags on American Airlines back in the day where you checked a bag.
Yeah.
So when I got to Syracuse, my parents were still living here. I had to borrow a suit from my dad, I'm like 5'10", 185 pounds. My dad's like 5'7", 140. I had to borrow his suit. So every one of those pictures, I've got this 38 jacket on, this little weird tie my dad had, and a 14-inch, which I couldn't button. So whenever I look at it, and the tie's sort of crooked, and it makes me think of my dad, who was proud of me that I was even there to see it, because I stayed one night with my parents to return the suit. So every time I see it, I think of my dad with the crooked, too small tie and jacket, and me standing next to Ali. Couldn't have been a happier man.
And to whoever, did you ever find the luggage or no?
Never got it back, and never got the the birthing of my daughter. I never got the tape back. That's all I wanted. I didn't care about the camera.
Yeah,
but ridiculous.
To whoever has John Moceyunas's luggage from those many years ago, not only do you need to get your karma correct, but if you have that video somewhere inside of that bag, you need to go ahead and find him on social media, return it to him, and do the right thing. I don't know what type of terrible person would do that, but
my daughter is a very prominent lawyer nowadays, so she, you don't want to mess with her in Jacksonville.
Absolutely not. And so, John, you brought up something that you said here that hit me. Is you said you digitized Don King's library, and all I can think about in my head is I want to see all of it. So what was that experience like? And what do you remember of digitizing this history of all the work that Don has been connected to? I mean, I would imagine that digitizing Don King's library is like somehow jumping into a supercomputer of boxing history and being able to live within that. I would imagine anybody would want to see a kernel of what you got to see in digitizing this.
Yeah, it was awesome. There are about 13,000 tapes. Don was absolutely fantastic at saving tapes. The other day, I just was picking up the 2-inch reel of the Thrilla in Manila. It's the original. It's about this big. It plays on a 2-inch. We have an old 2-inch player in there. We have all the different types of players that you needed to replay these tapes on, and it was I had to learn some skills to do it, because it's not just putting a tape in and playing it. You have to play around with these machines and do a lot of stuff, but incredible stuff in there. And I finished it in 2016, and then when I came back to work for Don this a year and a half ago, we discovered another 900 tapes that had been shipped from Cleveland down, and in that 900 tapes, there were a lot of tapes that were higher quality. In fact, we found the highest quality copy of the Rumble in the Jungle on a 3/4-inch tape that exists anywhere in the world, which was pretty cool. But we also found this, it might be the best piece of tape in the library amongst all the other things, because not only did we have all the fights, there was a lot of, I want to say personal footage, but Don took trips, and there was appearances on TV. He was on Johnny Carson 15 or 20 times, on David Letterman. All of those tapes were saved too. But this clip that I found, and when I saw it, my heart was pounding when I saw it. I found there were 3 different tapes. 2 were bad, 1 was pretty good, and I really had to edit them together to get it. But turns out it's October 12th, 1974, and they're in Kinshasa, Zaire. And Don King is dressed up in the African garb, and he introduces himself as the vice president of Video Techniques, which was the company that was televising it at the time. Hank Schwartz, I think, is the guy's name that was doing it. And Don's standing there. I believe that it may have aired on ABC or somewhere, but it's nowhere else you can find on the internet. And he interviews a very surly George Foreman, who's answering the questions with one-word answers, and he's clearly angry and doesn't want to be there. They're outside, and then George Foreman walks away. The interview goes on, and Don kind of ends it. And they leave the camera on. It's split footage, and then you can hear some yelling in the background, and it gets louder and louder. And clearly, you realize it's Muhammad Ali walking up to do the interview, and he does this fantastic interview where he's got all of his rhymes going, and I showed it to Don for the first time a couple weeks ago, and he was like, I said, "You remember?" And he goes, "Yeah, of course I remember it." And he looked at it, just Don looking at him watching it. That was incredible to watch him watching that interview, and to hear Ali at 30, what was he, 32 years old, considered kind of old at the time, talking and predicting, saying it's not going to go past 8 rounds. And everything he said, and I just looked at Ali, and watching this, I'd never seen it before, and you go, wow, that's why this dude is the greatest, man. Just listen to this, what he says and what he did and what he pulled off. And then, of course, I've digitized that fight 100 different ways and watched it and broken it down in my mind, and it was brilliant. I mean, he took on an undefeated George Foreman who had literally destroyed everybody, Norton and Frazier and everybody in his path, and Ali just handled him from round 1. And fight being called by, Christy and I had a good friend named Colonel Bob Sheridan, who passed away a couple weeks ago. Bob was 32 years old when he was given the job to call that fight, and he was brilliant. There's so many characters involved with that, and to find that piece of footage, I said to Don, I said, I think that might be the most valuable piece of footage in there. It's so comprehensive of everything that was going on in 1974, and comprehensive of people, 3 guys, Foreman, Ali, and Don King, who turned out to be some of the most important people, if not the most important people in boxing over the last 100 years. That was a really cool piece of footage.
Yeah, and that, I mean, thank you again for sharing that, and just those incredible moments that we don't get to see and that we don't know, and all of these things that maybe, people were a part of, but they forgot about. And so I definitely can't thank you enough for sharing that with us. Pat, I want to throw it over to you here. Do you have a question for John? Hearing all of this morning, and John, the more you speak, the more questions I have, the more I want to dig deeper into this, the more I want to be like, hey, the next time you go and see Don King, can I just tag along for like an hour and just drink it in and be a part of this? Because Don King is somebody that since I was a little kid, I never forgot. He would come on the TV, you'd see that hair, you'd see that smile, he'd be standing up there with the fighter, and you would just pay attention. Even as a little kid, I knew him. I didn't know any other promoter. I didn't know anything else that was going on, but I knew Don King. He had that presence that the first time you saw him, after that, you just never stopped paying attention. You always knew what, he's on the TV. We're paying attention to the TV. Everybody quiet. We're looking at the TV. So, Pat, do you have a question or two for John, hearing some of this stuff about his life, about Don King Productions? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Well, I was going to ask him about, the experience of working with Don King, but he kind of just told us that story. But I couldn't imagine being around Don King as much as he was, because we were in Philadelphia one time when I was there with the Boxing Hall of Fame crew. We had Ed and Jeff, and we were in a diner or a restaurant in Philadelphia, and I can remember Jeff's eyes getting so big, and he was looking behind me, and the excitement that he had. And when I turned around, all I saw was Don King's hair over the little wall that divides the tables and stuff coming through. And he was so excited that Don King was coming through and his laugh and all that. So to live that experience all the time has to be incredible. But as far as the question, I'm going to shift because you are from Syracuse or Fayetteville. And what do you think of SU football right now? Where are they going?
Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh boy! Look at
I think that's the toughest question in the world right now.
Okay. you look at Dan. Okay. If you can allow me, I'm gonna get ripped and blasted for my opinion, but you want it, so I'm gonna give it to you. I'm gonna give you two opinions. Guys should have. Jim Boeheim should have found his way out the door about 10 years ago. I'm on basketball right now. Jim Boeheim should have found his way out about 10 years ago, and we should have found another coach. Babers, for as much as he is got a lot of energy, and I like it, Syracuse is going to have to figure out whether they want to play on the big stage or they want to stay in that same Little League field I was playing for Uncle Pat on for the rest of their existence. You're going to have to pony up the money, and maybe not Deion Sanders money, but I was just watching a thread this morning, and my cousin has a podcast on Facebook that he does about Syracuse basketball. But you want to be big time, you're going to have to pony up the money for a coach first, because in college football, the entire program, unlike the NFL, the entire program revolves around the coach. The coach is the recruiter, the coach is the publicist, the coach is the coach, the coach is the manager. He is everything. And they are going to have to pony up for some big money for a real big time coach. And I saw somebody on Facebook, I was at 7:30 this morning, I was reading the list of all the guys that were kind of out there and available. They're going to have to do that if they want to go somewhere with football. Because, look, I went to the first game in the Dome. I never forget it. My mom went back to school at Syracuse, and she was getting her master's degree. This is in whatever year it was, 1980. And my brother and I went, and we were supposed to sit in the student section. They gave us seats right down on the lower level in the corner, watch Joe Morris return that ball for, however many yards, and listen to the roar inside the Dome, and said, wow. And I went to one of the games in the last season at the old stadium. What was the name of the old stadium?
Archibald.
Archibald. Yeah, I went to Archibald and sat. In fact, the game I went to, speaking of Christy Martin, was West Virginia, and I watched some drunk guy jump out of the stand and beat up the guy in the West Virginia Mountaineer. So I saw that, and then I saw the Dome, and I said, wow, we have arrived in football. And then watched some pretty exciting seasons. I lived on Roosevelt Avenue when we went, 11-0-1 or whatever it was with Coach Mack. I thought big things were going to happen. Then Pasqualoni was pretty good, got us to a ton of bowls, and Syracuse got to figure out a way to get a coach. That's all it is to it. It's that simple. They got to spend the money on a big time coach. Maybe I'm a simpleton, but that's what I think has got to happen. They got to pony up big money.
And they're gonna have to pay money, and it's a reality. We're in the ACC, and we're not gonna make it to the top with the strength of those other teams. But if we spend the money and do what we should, gotta get up there close.
Unfortunately, it's just a money deal on this one. It does not take an NFL organization with an owner. I mean, NFL is a completely complicated thing. I think you're seeing now that Tom Brady's the one that won all those Super Bowls and not, Belichick. But it's not that simple in the NFL. But I think it is pretty simple in college football. You got to start with a great coach who's everything and go from there. And as much as people like the energy of Babers, I don't think he's ever going to be the man, unfortunately.
So, John, I'm going to ask you this. Do you want, coming off of what you said, would you like to hear my opinion on it in covering the team?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I've covered this team. I've been a broadcaster. Next month, it'll be 20 years. And I've covered this team that entire time. I came back to Syracuse from Florida and have been on site on location covering the team for about a decade. If not, maybe I think it's like 11 years now that I've, been around this football team. So what I can say from growing up a Pascaloni kid to then having from Coach P to having Greg Robinson, then being there for when I came back home half of Doug Marone's time and being able to be around him, then from Doug Marone to Scott Schaefer to Dino Babers. What I can tell you, and I agree with you, that they don't spend the money. Syracuse is outrageously cheap for being a school that has a lot of money. They don't spend a lot of money, and I say that about, I said some people stay rich because they're cheap. And in the case of Syracuse, Dino and I have a great relationship. I've been around him for the 8 years that he's been here. Him and I have talked plenty of times off the air, and we've really built a great relationship. Before Dino was Scott Schaefer. Scott Schaefer was not given the respect. He was treated like a placeholder. His picture wasn't put on anything. I don't think his name was hardly put on anything. He got little to no respect, little to no appreciation, little to no publicity. I would tell people for those 3 years, do you know who the coach is at the school? Because Syracuse University doesn't even promote it. And Scott put together a staff who are all successful. Clark Lee is the head coach at Vanderbilt right now. Chuck Bola has been in different places leading defensive units and whatnot. Scott Schaefer came back to the Dome as the defensive coordinator of Middle Tennessee and defeated Syracuse. Then you look at DeAndre Smith, who was working with Saquon Barkley as the Giants running backs coach last year. Now he's working with Jonathan Taylor with the Colts this year. He's had tremendous success in a bunch of different places, that just naming two of them. Joe Adams having one of the most successful careers ever in St. Anselm history for the Hawks in NCAA Division II football, and he's been there for a long time. Fred Reed, who unfortunately passed away over a year ago, had spent all of his time at Eastern Michigan leading the defensive backs there and doing a tremendous job. Tim Lester is only working with the Green Bay Packers right now as a senior analyst. So, when you look at that staff to kind of paint the picture of where Syracuse football is right now, they didn't give them enough time. That's the staff that brought you Eric Dungy. That's the staff that brought you the NFL's leading tackler going into this past week, Zaire Franklin. They never got respect for the recruiting that they did. And I saw the recruiting trail. I talked to a ton of people on the recruiting trail. I spoke with those student athletes all throughout the year. What I told people all the time when they said, will Syracuse ever win again? I said, what you don't see is they're already winning. And if they let Schaefer stay here, they're going to continue to win because Schaefer acted like he went to school here. He acted like he lived in Syracuse. He wanted to be in Syracuse as far as I'm concerned of being around him and his family, his wife and his daughter and son. He wanted to be here his whole life. For the rest of his life, he was going to be Syracuse's head coach. Dave Doran's had success in NC State with time. Dave Clawson had success in Wake Forest with time. They're both better than Syracuse, and they both had what Schaefer didn't have, which was time. So if we want to assess this problem, I think they should have kept Schaefer, number one. And number two, if we're looking at who's available, there's a guy that I put on the list years ago, and apparently Syracuse did not listen to me on this list, but there was a guy that was coming from Memphis that put Memphis Tigers on the map, got a bunch of guys to the NFL, had a ton of success, and then after him came Mike Norvell, did the same thing at Memphis, and now Mike's at FSU, and I told those FSU fans the day he was hired that they would be totally fine, and he's going to get you someplace, give him 3 or 4 years. In the case of Justin Fuente, who I'm bringing up, he's available right now. Now, he had immediate success at Virginia Tech. He brought him to the ACC championship game. I was there when they played Clemson, and he did a heck of a job. And he went through injury upon injury upon injury of his players, his quarterbacks, and I think he got a lot of unfair treatment and kind of got ousted out of there. Justin Fuente, to me, is a phone call to make. There's certain people out there that would be great. Steve Adazio, who was under Coach P at Syracuse, loves Syracuse, recruits Syracuse everywhere he goes. He's at Texas A&M, he's been at Florida, he's been all over the place. Colorado State, he recruits Syracuse kids. He recruits upstate New York, the Northeast. He is a guy who would be perfect for this job because he would almost make it like nothing ever happened between him and Coach P. It would be like there was no coaches in between, and we're back to normal Syracuse football again. Punch you in the mouth, give you that, punch down, drag out defense, run the ball until we just totally demoralize another team. So, I mean, those are two names that I can tell you right now of guys that I would talk to, and I have a pulse on the country because I cover a lot more than Syracuse. Fuente and Adazio immediately would be phone calls for me, but you said it, John. Either Syracuse wants to compete to be an actual strong team in college football, or they want to be this team that's just desperately clawing at 6-6 so that they can go to a bowl game somewhere in the country, and whether they lose or win it, they can say that they went to a bowl game, which I think is a despicable, terrible way of wanting to run this program, because you fired Paul Pasqualoni for being 6-6, and now you promote coaches and give them raises for being 4-8.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's and Syracuse has always been, with SI Newhouse. My mom graduated from there, back in the 80s after going to Lemoyne College. They have this giant built-in media following. Like, look, I've been watching SU Sports since Frank Maloney, which was, the coach before everybody that I remember.
Yeah.
And I don't remember Schwartzwalder. I was born in the 60s, but Syracuse has a built-in media behind them because you've got all these guys that graduated from Newhouse. So when you watch games on TV, you can always sense those guys that were around SI Newhouse School of Communications. They're always a little bit, you can tell they're always a little slanted towards Syracuse. And Syracuse has always been noted for traveling well to these bowl games. They get this huge crowd for a 6-5 team that makes it to the Liberty Bowl, or what was the one back in the 70s? The Independence Bowl. I remember that was the first one I saw. They have all the ingredients there to have this team that people would really, really follow and would really get built-in media coverage, but they just can never seem to step it up. And I guess right now, unfortunately, it comes down to just spending that money. And the president of the university, I don't even know who he is now. I'm pretty detached from Syracuse. They show all the games down here. They have since I've been here in the late 80s. The Syracuse games always seem to make it down on TV. So I stay fairly in touch with it. But I just think that they got to spend this money and do the right thing. Guys, smart guys like you that know this sport, that coach is sitting out there. There's the next, 35-year-old Nick Saban guy sitting out there somewhere, and Syracuse got to find him and hire him and pay him and keep him and give him the resources he needs, and then they could do it. I mean, I don't know what the revenues are for Syracuse, but that ain't a poor school. I can tell you that much.
No, but they tell everybody how poor they are up on that hill. I can promise you that. I mean, they've always. I shouldn't say always, but in these last couple of years and the renovations and different things that they've done, they have claimed poverty so many times. And I figured out just by the sheer numbers of when they were charging $70,000 per student per year. And then I multiplied that about how many students that they had. And I was like, if they've never sold a hot dog, never sold a beer, never sold a soda, never sold a ticket to a game, nobody went to a game, they would make over $2 billion selling no merchandise, no food, no drinks, no tickets. But yet they tell everybody, we're just pinching pennies up here on this hill. And I think, and you're exactly right, John, when you talk about finding somebody who can be the next, right? But that would take the education, which I don't think Syracuse takes the time to do. It would take the work, which I don't think Syracuse cares enough to do. I have almost kind of looked at this like they don't care if the football program dies. They don't care if they run it into the ground, because it's more about being an Ivy League school right now than it is about taking care of the football team, taking care of the basketball team. It's more about who can we get for pennies on the dollar. Like, it's a lot cheaper to tell Adrian Autry he's getting a raise than to go hire a coach who hasn't been at Syracuse, because that coach is going to say, I want $4 million a year. But if Adrian's making $1 million and you say, hey, Adrian, how does $2 million sound? We're going to double your salary. Well, that might work for Adrian. but that's not going to work for, Mark Few. It's not going to work for John Shire. It's not going to work for, people out there, for Hubert Davis and so on and so forth. So, I mean, I agree with you that they have to find it. And I also want to remind people, going off of your point, Dabo Swinney was the wide receivers coach at Clemson. They took a chance on him in Clemson. When they hired him to be the head coach internally, he went to the podium. He told this story in front of me a couple of years ago. He went to the podium and told that room of media people that they will win, that this will be a team that will win. This is a team that's going to be successful. He was talking about this team, getting to the top of the mountain, so to speak. And they laughed in his face in that room. They laughed in his face. But he was that young guy who just wanted a chance. And there's young people that just want a chance out there. And Steve Adazio's been in the game for a long time. He's not the young guy that's out there, but he's a guy that I know loves this city. I know he bleeds for this city. And we desperately need somebody who's going to pull back the alumni. I mean, how many schools don't talk to their alumni, don't have them stand on the field, don't welcome them back, tell them they're not allowed in the Ernie Davis room, so I don't know who is allowed in there. They don't recruit locally. They don't build bonds in the community. They don't allow their assistant coaches to talk to the community so nobody knows who they are and when they get fired and when they don't. It's a recipe for failure, and I've had coaches in Division 1A football say to me, what Syracuse is doing right now, we're watching around the country, and it's like they're fully doing the recipe for failure. And that's coming from other Division 1A coaches. It's like they're trying to destroy it, and I don't understand why. So I fully feel your sentiments. You got me passionate and amped right now about this, John and Pat. So thank you for that. And before we jump into rapid fire really quick, Christy, are you back with us? Let's see if Christy's back here. Okay, so we don't have Christy yet. I know she was going through security. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into rapid fire. John, this gives us an opportunity to get to know you a little bit better and get to know us a little bit better. We're going to round robin this thing and have some fun. I'll ask Pat a question, Pat will ask you, and then we'll come back so we all get to talk to each other. It could be about boxing. It could be about literally anything in the world. And John, you haven't been on the show before, so I'm going to preface this right now. I've dated a lot of crazy people, and so I have a lot of stories, a lot of comedy. It's led to my stand-up, and I think Don King Productions should expand out into stand-up, and he should let me tell some of these stories someday. So I just want to preface, if you want to ask about my ex-girlfriends, I will not close the door on it. So Pat, you get to ask John, and we'll go from there. What do you have for John?
So John, just so you know, his stories, they're going to be complicated. He's dated some pretty crazy people.
I have. Not on purpose.
So anywhere you go there, it's going to be a long answer.
Not on purpose. Not on purpose.
But let's go into the boxing. I got a question for you on the Paul fight that happened this past weekend. Did you see the highlights of it at all?
On which fight?
Logan Paul. Was it Logan Paul or?
No, bad question to ask. I'm not paying $49.95 to see Logan Paul fight, so I don't know. I don't care what happened, and I don't want to see what happened. I'm a hardcore.
I didn't see it either, but it's like he gets so many followings and stuff, and so many viewers. It's amazing because it's a mockery of boxing. Do you think that boxing, with that fiasco of a show, will be able to prosper in the future? Because it just seems like there's just some people aren't putting good fighters together, and fighters don't want to fight and stuff, and they don't make weight in that. Do you see the future being okay with that, with the MMA and all this stuff that where all the fans kind of flock to, and boxing still just gets so many fans? Does it worry you that boxing is going to disappear?
No, look at boxing is like all other professional sports. They are driven by their stars.
Yeah.
When a star comes along, it doesn't matter. The star can transcend the sport. Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, Mike Tyson. Do you remember what Mike Tyson did to the boxing world in the 1980s? Boxing was great, but it went to a whole different level. Floyd Mayweather is, calls himself the greatest fight in the world, but Floyd Mayweather is the biggest pay-per-view draw. You know why? Not because he's the best fighter. It's because he was the biggest foil. People paid to see if he was going to lose. I'm going to prove it to you. Because when he fought Manny Pacquiao, he had 4.5 million pay-per-view buys. The record beat all the records that Don King Productions had. You know why people watched that fight? Because they wanted to see Pacquiao beat Mayweather. When he fought Berto in the next fight, he had 600,000 buys. You know why? Because Berto had no chance to beat Mayweather, and it proved my point that people bought the fight to see Mayweather lose. But that being said, Mayweather, like Randy Macho Man Savage in wrestling, or anybody that's a foil or a heel, they pay to see the stars, good or bad. And boxing just needs a big star, and it will be rescued. At any point in time, a big star can come along and put up 4 or 5 million buys on pay-per-view. The reason that Logan Paul and those guys is because they're filling a void of no big stars in boxing. They've got this big YouTube following. Logan and Jake Paul have some skills. They do all this crazy stuff. I personally refuse to buy it. You'll never see a dollar come out of my pocket to watch them. I won't even watch the highlights. If either one of those Paul brothers, can make it to a championship fight, they're not going to win. It is a joke. It is a disgrace. But I can't blame those guys for filling a void that we've created because we can't come up with a boxing star. Look at all these guys are now playing other sports. Boxing is a tough sport. You get knocked out, you can be punch drunk and have dementia by the time you're 40. I can name you 5 guys that I know that have that. It's a sport a great sport that's desperately looking for its next stars. And until we come up with that star, whoever he is or whoever she is, boxing is going to continue that long, slow, terrible descent into a third-tier sport. I'll just tell you this much: when ESPN first came online, and you looked on the Chiron on the top of ESPN.com, the sports that were up there were football, baseball, basketball, boxing. Go up there now and see what's on the Chiron. You won't even find boxing on. If you keep scrolling to the right, you won't even find boxing on ESPN's Chiron. That's where boxing is gone right now. Yeah. It was America's sport at one point. The heavyweight champion of the world was the biggest guy. He earned more money than, I saw the Reggie Jackson video where he made $20,000 a year when he was playing for the Oakland A's. Back in 1908, they paid $100,000 to Jack Dempsey to fight. 90 years before, that heavyweight champion was the biggest athlete in the world. That heavyweight champion is no longer a guy that even knows. There is nobody that even knows who the real heavyweight champion is right now. Is it Usyk? Is it Fury? Is it Anthony Joshua? Who is it? They don't even know that anymore. And until we get that star, until we get a star here in the United States, a U.S. Mike Tyson type champion, we're going to just unfortunately, we're going to watch this very slow, terrible demise of boxing. And I don't know where it stops. I don't know where it ends. If it just ends up off the map altogether. I don't know. It's unfortunate. It's sad for us boxing fans.
That coming from John Moceyunas. John, what's your question for me?
Dan, you're around this. I'm going to bring you back to Syracuse basketball, okay?
Yeah.
And I was never a giant fan of Boeheim because, well, for whatever reason. And I saw him. I remember the day he started at SU. I remember being a kid. I remember having a basketball hoop out in my. And now we are where we are.
Yeah.
And again, Syracuse basketball, I presume, is the moneymaker at Syracuse.
Yeah.
Autry is the coach. I don't follow it tight enough to know where it's at. Where are we going to go with Syracuse basketball and Autry? Do we have a shot? Should we get our hopes up? Or do we just wait and see? What are we in for?
Oh, it's a good question, and I appreciate it. I would say now I've had a unique experience with Adrian Autry because when I started doing a show with Adrian Autry, and we would go out on location to a restaurant out here in central New York, he was considered unsellable. You know, people don't want him, people don't want to pay for him, nobody wants to do a show with him. And so I would like to think that our bond came from when people were saying, he's an afterthought. Like, we'll take care of all the other coaches and then we'll worry about Adrian. And I thought it was disrespectful toward him. I thought it was wrong. And I said, hey, do you want to do a show? Because I see your value even if they don't. And we started doing a show together, and we were at Borio's restaurant one night, and Mike Hopkins, obviously gets brought up a lot with all the recruiting that he did. Well, I'm speaking with Adrian, and Adrian starts rattling off the people that he's brought to Syracuse. And he's not saying in a gloating fashion. He's just, sharing with me, Chris McCullough and Jeremy Grant, Tyler Ennis and whatnot. And I'm looking at him, and you can see some people in the bar are kind of now turning this one guy in front of us like they didn't know. And I said, Adrian, you know that most of the credit for all the guys you name goes to Mike. I said, why don't you tell people that you do it? And he's like, I go to work. I don't. So all these, there was all of these recruits that people were saying Mike Hopkins is doing this by himself. 100% it's all Mike. And a lot of the NBA players came from Adrian Autry and came from his recruitment. And I'll never forget that Adrian and I were on the phone a few years back. I know exactly where I was sitting. I know what parking lot I was in. And I was taking notes, and he said, hey, I'm going overseas to Slovakia to go see this guy, Marek Dolezaj. And he said, please don't report it. Please don't say anything because nobody knows I'm going. And he didn't want anybody else to go. And so Marek, I spoke with Marek after this because we built a good relationship over the years. Marek and I were talking, and he said he was the only coach to come and see my dad and I. He said every other coach called us. He's the only coach that got on a plane and physically came to meet us. And as soon as he said that, I thought back to, yeah, well, Adrian should give me some publicity for that because he was the only coach to go over there because I didn't tell anybody he was going. But, all jokes aside, that's who Adrian is, right? That's who Adrian's been to me, is that he'll go the extra mile. He shows that he cares about people. So that's kind of the backdrop of my answer, is who he is, and that I respect my relationship with him and the type of human being that he's been. So but he picks on my Jaguars way too much, and he's been extremely quiet lately, John. I wonder why. So with that being said, looking at the team now, a couple months ago, I was down in Florida, and I think it was July, and I was going through the roster, and I was going through who was coming back and who was coming in, and I started to write out the roster, and I started to write out the depth chart and the positions of each guy and who I would shift over here, like Justin Taylor, say, okay, well, let's put him as a forward now. He doesn't need to be a guard, and I'm shifting everything. And I looked at it on the napkin that I wrote it on, and I thought to myself, wow, I'm a lot more excited than I was. So I think that we're a little light in certain ways at forward. Center is going to be a question mark, but there's enough guards on this team. There's like 5, maybe 6 if you shifted a guy over. I think that there's some good shooting here. Judah Mintz coming back is obviously very important. There's veteran guards that are transferring in for opportunities to maybe spell. I spoke with, Quadir Copeland last year, and he said, I came here to be a point guard. I didn't come here to be anything else. So that could be good or bad with Judah Mintz coming back onto this team, and Quadir, how much time does he get? But thinking about Adrian, I think that the team is meant to be longer. They're meant to run in transition more. They're meant to be kind of more spry on their feet, so to speak. And I think we might see zone, but I think there's going to be a huge kind of wave of excitement when they're in the dome and they come out in the zone, and then Adrian kind of messes with you. They come out in the zone and then they switch to man, and everybody's going to freak out. So I honestly...
Wow, Dan, that was such a question I was going to get to, because I've watched that 2-3 zone from, and I'm going to ask you this follow-up question.
Yeah.
Boeheim had switched up on defense, had not been so adamant on playing that zone defense, how many more championships would SU have won if he had just been willing to switch up the defense?
I appreciate the question because I've had this conversation with many people. I think that Syracuse would have at least 3 national championships in total if he were to not be so stubborn. And again, I have a good relationship with Jim Boeheim. I've been in his office. I'm one of the media people he doesn't yell at. We've spent time talking with each other. And, I appreciate the quality time that I've had. Jim Boeheim is a man set in his ways. He is Clint Eastwood. He's like Clint Eastwood in a recent movie. Not the racism of Gran Torino or whatever the movie was. It Gran Torino? I think it was. Whatever it was called. But not the racism of that, not the Clint Eastwood racism of that, but like the guy who doesn't want anybody looking at his house, walking on his lawn, none of that stuff. Like that's how I picture, Jim Boeheim. And if he wasn't so stubborn, they would have won a lot more. They would have more he talks about having 1,000 wins, and now he's got over 1,100 because you can't erase history, NCAA. Yes, I'm saying it because it's true. So you got 1,100 wins, but you kept yourself from having championships. And John and Pat, there was something that he said in a press conference that I will never forget for the rest of my life. Tyler Ennis was playing on the team at the time. I was in the back, and normally I go to the press conference, and I always stand to his farthest left. So like when he turns to his left there, like the post standard stands there, and I always stand to his farthest left, and I'm always standing up. I don't sit down. And I remember I was in the back of the room. I didn't go up to where he was yet, and I was getting the stats. And somebody asked him a question about switching defenses, and he responded the way that he typically responded. He said, "How many wins do you have?" "I got 900 wins. You have 0 wins." He said this to the media person, which, is apples and oranges. The media person could have said, "I have 900 articles. You have 0." So, but he said this thing that I'll never forget. He said, with the 2-3 zone, we're going to lose some games. He said, when a team has a really good shooting night, we're going to lose 2 or 3 games this season based on a team that has a really good shooting night. And he's like, and that's just how it is. And basically, we just have to accept it and move on. And I literally smiled. I looked up and I went, and that is why you lose in the tournament, because what if that game where a team has a good shooting night just so happens to be in the NCAA tournament when it's do or die? And I just remember saying to myself, when he said, hey, teams are going to shoot well against the 2-3 zone, there's nothing we could do about it, we're going to lose those games, essentially. I remember going, and that's why you're not as successful. That's why you haven't won as many championships, because you have the mentality of a team's going to shoot well. Vermont in the tournament shot well.
Richmond Spiders.
It is a proven fact. It is a proven fact. If you go back and look at the numbers recently, in the last 2 or 3 years of Jim Boeheim coaching, that teams have their best three-point shooting nights of the entire season against Syracuse. Virginia came in at 41% to the Dome, I think 3 years ago. They were 70% when they left that day. And Jim will say, well, they're just going to have one of those games. But they never had that game against anybody else. So if you look at statistically and say this team's a 40% three-point shooting team, now they're 52%. Look at Cornell's beating them 2 years in a row. Who would have ever thought Colgate. Who would have ever thought that Colgate would beat Syracuse? There was a 58-year span. I think it was 58 years. And Syracuse loses in back-to-back years to Matt Langle and his crew. And Matt's doing a phenomenal job there. But I went and watched Colgate-Binghamton after I watched Colgate-Syracuse, and they were both road games for Colgate. Colgate played Binghamton the same way they played Syracuse, and Binghamton looked almost exactly like Syracuse, outside of some plays inside. They did the exact same thing to Binghamton, and Syracuse looked no better than Binghamton on that line. So to answer your question, I'm more excited than I thought I was going to be. I think there's going to be more stuff. I think that Adrian's going to play multiple. But do I think Syracuse can escape the ACC 99.9% of the time? No.
Nope. No, you're right. You're right.
All right, Miss Moore.
Your thought is my thought exactly on that. I think we would have had 3 or 4. I think it wasn't the championships that we lost. I think it was those, Richmond. I remember that game, and a couple other games where they exited in the first or second round and got shot 60% on, and they just said, unfortunately, I don't. There's people in Syracuse that love Boeheim, and he's gone. And I just go, I never really dug the guy. I just didn't. My dad liked him. My dad worked for Syracuse University Research Corporation up on the hill there. So he would see Boeheim at the, whatever that sandwich shop was there, and would chit-chat a little bit with Boeheim. And my dad he liked him. There was no talking my dad out of how much he liked Jim Boeheim. Just liked him. Boeheim, I can hear my dad. He passed away a couple of years ago, but I can hear his voice talking about Boeheim with reverence. And I just never had the reverence for the guy. Sorry.
I mean, I can say that I have respect for him, absolutely. I disagree with him respectfully on some of the stubbornness and some of the decision making, but and the way he handled some of the players like Tyler Roberson, who, the more he picked on him in public, the more Tyler went into his shell, and you can't do that with everybody. Some people respond well, some people don't. Some people are Rakeem Christmas and Trevor Cooney, and some people are Tyler Roberson and some of these other guys out there, and he has to be cognizant of that, and Kadari Richmond. So, Pat, so my question for you as we come back around this thing. So, Pat, my question for you is, who is your favorite Syracuse football player of all time to watch?
My favorite of all time. Oof. I've had a lot of favorites. I loved watching Donovan McNabb play. Probably the quarterbacks are probably fun. I like watching Tim Green too. He was a beast on the field. Dan Conley. I think I like Syracuse as a whole, football and basketball. I like basketball more than football, but probably just because of their success. I think like Marvin Harrison. I think that just the excitement of the successful players probably is what drew me to it, because we've had so much non-success. So I really think that it's probably Donovan McNabb, because I think he had fun doing what he did. And I liked watching Eric Dungy because he was crazy.
Yeah.
It was all or nothing. We got to get to that end zone. And he was a quarterback that did what he had to do to get there, and he wasn't afraid to get hurt. He didn't want to get hurt, but he wasn't afraid to. He took some hellacious hits and stuff. So I think it's usually an offensive player, but I just kind of like I like the success of the players and watch that. Like, I don't have a favorite NFL team. I like watching players. I like the quarterbacks that are in the league now and stuff. So football, they don't have a favorite team for me. Basketball, I love SU basketball. And I think Adrian Autry is going to do really well, and he's going to surprise a lot of people, because I think the guys are going to play for him. He's a likable guy. When he played, he wasn't extravagant or arrogant or cocky. I mean, he just let his game do the talking, and he was probably one of the more enjoyable players to watch, kind of like a Sherman Douglas and stuff like that. They led by their play. So I have a lot of favorite players. I just like watching success and how hard they work.
I can appreciate that very much. So, Pat, what's your question for me while we go back around here?
Let's see. Of all the traveling you do, because you do a lot of travel, you might be up there with John in the traveling and Christy.
Yeah. Can you hear us, Pat?
That city.
What was that? So you cut out for a second. So you said, what did you say?
I said, what city is your favorite city to travel to, and what's your favorite restaurant in that city? What's your go-to place to go eat?
Oh, boy. So, okay. Well, I'm going to tell this one, because I've passed this restaurant God knows how many times in the last couple of years, and my schedule never allots for me to stop. and I want to stop. And I drove by the restaurant yesterday. So down in St. Augustine, there is a restaurant called the Caddy Shack, and the Caddy Shack restaurant that is off of the international golf kind of like there's an exit there, and it's in between Jacksonville and St. Augustine, and it's
Golf Hall of Fame.
yes, and so the International Golf Hall of Fame, and right before you come off of the exit, or I'm sorry, when you come off the exit, there's a hotel there, and there's like some nice stuff around the area, and Bill Murray and his brothers open up a restaurant in honor of the movie Caddyshack that they did. And I went there and I had a pizza. I had my first ever fig and pig pizza that has prosciutto and fig on it. And I think about the pizza every time I drive. It doesn't matter if I'm on the phone. It doesn't matter if I'm singing a song. As soon as I see the exit, I'm like, oh, God, I love that pizza. So I would probably have to pick that. And I need to schedule better because having an Italian Hispanic family, you can't have proof in your car that you ate food before you got to the house. So my whole thing is like I've literally stopped and gotten food and then I hide it in my car so that my aunt can't see it. I really hope my Aunt Mary isn't watching right now. And I really hope she's not watching right now. I love you, Aunt Mary. So, but yeah, I there's times where I'm like, I'm gonna stop, I'm gonna get the pizza, and I'm good. But then I'm like, I can't leave it in the car. That's the thing, you can't leave pizza in the car. So, but yeah, I probably have to pick that because it's so good and it inspired me to do things with fig and with prosciutto and to create my own pizza here that I'm probably gonna do this year. So. Yeah, I'd probably have to say that because it's the restaurant I think about every time I cover the Jaguars.
I think you can get that at Toss and Fire in North Syracuse.
The thing, though, is it's not the same. It's not the same. Here's the thing about Bill Murray, though, and that whole experience. His brother, one of his brothers, reposted the videos and the pictures that I took in the restaurant, and he put it on his social media. So there's like a better than fair chance that Bill Murray saw my content about his restaurant, which to me is insane. And I was also in a game. There was Bill Murray came out to one of the games that I was covering, and that was pretty cool too. So definitely shout out to Bill Murray and much love to Bill Murray and your family for making a wonderful restaurant. And I hope I get to see Bill soon and can actually tell him how much I like the food there. So
That was a good pitch.
yes. All right. So, John, my question for you. So, we're talking about different things in Central and Upstate New York. We're talking about sports. What if you came back to Syracuse for a day? Tell me what you would do. Where you're eating, what you're doing, where you're going. I want you to paint a picture. Like you come back to Syracuse and you, Pat, Christy, and I hop in a car and you have the rights of taking us wherever you want to see whatever you want. I want you to paint me what we would do in Central New York through the decision-making of John Moceyunas.
That's funny. Well, I drive you through Fayetteville and Manlius and drive you by FM High School where I set a couple of records in baseball, but I think they're long been crushed. I love that area. When I go home, there's a peace and tranquility to it. I was born on 111 Washington Boulevard, grew up there. My parents lived there 35 years. I love it. There's a vibe to home like nowhere else. Just when our house is still there on Washington Boulevard. It's still painted gray, same driveway that my parents put in back in. I would drive you all through. I'd force you to go and show you everywhere where I hung out and grew up and rode my bike and did everything my whole life. And we would probably stop at Buffoon's in Manlius to have a drink. That was one of the bars that, back in my day, the drinking age was 18. So when I was in high school, we could go out and drink, which was just a crazy thought. And I love downtown Syracuse, that revived area where they built, because when I was a kid, I had a job at Perry Office Supply in downtown Syracuse. I don't know if you remember that, Dan, or not. Perry Office Supply was like the biggest office supply store. My next door neighbor was ironically, his name was Bill Staples, and he was the salesman for Perry Office Supply.
Yeah,
And so 2 or 3 summers I got to work there, and it was downtown. I had a great job. It was not quite as great as the boxing business, but I would deliver packages. In the old days, you would order from the office supply, and they would deliver it. So when I was, I don't know, 14, 15, 3 years, 3 summers in a row, and I got to deliver packages. I'd take this little cart and deliver them to downtown businesses. Back when downtown Syracuse was still thriving, the Money Building and the State Office Building, and all those buildings in downtown. So I have a real affection for downtown Syracuse, and now that it's been revived, and I've been back a few times, and I go to the downtown bars, the 20-something bars that are down there. I think I would, all of us would go down there and take a walk through all those bars and have a drink and talk with people, and inevitably I would probably run into somebody that I kind of know in that city. When I got out of college, I ran a company called Champion TV and Appliance Rentals back in the rent-own day. One store was on Onondaga Boulevard, and the other one was on South Salina Street. They're long gone. They were bought by Rent-A-Center and closed and all that. So I made a lot of friends with people in the city of Syracuse that I didn't have growing up in Fayetteville. So I still got pretty deep roots there. And downtown, I have a real affection for it. Anything, just walking through the streets, just walking the same routes I walked when I was a kid delivering packages is just pretty awesome. It brings peace to me thinking about it. So I would drag you guys to all of our haunts, all of the old bars that we used to go to when we were a kid, Club 37 and Suburban Park. And I think the Paradise Saloon is still open over there next to the Lost Horizon. Those were 2 places. Anybody that grew up in my era could tell you all of the specials. You know, the Mad Hatter in Jamesville, is that still open? Is the Mad Hatter still open? It was right there on 173, right at the intersection of 173, and I don't even remember the other street.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard about it. So
it was dollar pictures at Mad Hatter. The bars up at SU. I worked at Poets, which was, I don't know if you guys know where it is, but the building is still there. There's a T-shirt shop where Poets was, and Maggie's was above it. And all those bars in SU came to prominence. So we would take a walk through down Marshall Street. Hungry Charlie's is closed, right? It's not there anymore, Pat. You probably know. We would have to take a walk through. We would have to take a drive through Fayetteville, a walk through downtown, and a walk through Syracuse, and end up at a Syracuse game in the Carrier Dome, at which I was at the very, very first game, and. You would love to have somebody sitting next to us from Syracuse. I became friends with Donovan Darius here. He's in Jacksonville. I became kind of friends with him through Nate Campbell, who's a world champion and my close friend.
Yeah.
Who's training Tito Escalera on our fight on November 4th. I would like to sit next to Donovan Darius and maybe like Joe Morris if we could find him and reminisce about that first game in the Dome. That would be a dream, day or weekend come true.
Yeah, and Joe Morris.
Joe Morris, he's awesome.
Oh yeah, and he came back here. I mean, he came back once to Syracuse. Jersey, got retired. Again, they don't talk to they don't. I mean, they've maybe done a better job these last couple of years, depending on which person you talk to. But there's alumni that live here in Syracuse that set records. And Rob Drummond, of running backs that had at least 300 carries at Syracuse, Rob Drummond is second only to Jim Brown in the history of Syracuse football in yards per carry for running backs that had at least 300 carries at Syracuse. And he is almost never invited. Scott Schwades isn't. Tim Green was up there one time. And, Dan Conley, you never see his invitation go up there. Rob Conrad gave a ton of money. They didn't even let him speak at halftime after he made a huge donation. So, Joe Morris, I was happy that he came back, but it was weird because it's like you're looking at Joe and Joe's kind of looking around like he hasn't been back here in 100 years and it's Joe Morris. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense why that would happen, but hopefully things like that can change quickly. Final note here, John, you have a question for Pat, and then we'll have a final word from Christy. So what's your question for Pat?
Pat, what's the craziest situation you've been in photographing fighters? And when I'm talking crazy, I'm talking Tyson Holyfield biting his ear, which I was at. I was ringside with my brother to see that. What's the craziest situation you were ever in photographing a fight? The most just out of control situation you ever saw?
Most out of control has to be Bo Galata at Madison Square Garden.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
The riot was real. It was just, during the fight, there's a whole Polish section up on the top level that, they were just going nuts during the fight. Every time Galata got called for a low blow, they went nuts. And then all of a sudden, that whole section disappeared. And, within minutes, you saw them running out on the floor and everybody was just fighting. Chairs were flying. People were getting thrown around. I saw one guy this guy picked him up and put him right on a railing. He had to break some ribs. He hit so hard. And I was actually standing on the platform with the HBO video crew. And, people were jumping down by us and people were just kicking the shit out of people that didn't even know they did anything wrong, And then you look down into the ring and you can see they're taking Lou Duva out on a stretcher and people are grabbing at him and grabbing it, this guy is in medical emergency and people are stealing stuff from him. They took his watch. I think they took his wallet.
Yep.
It was total chaos. TV
that changed
couldn't have done justice for what was going on because the backstories and the side stories. If there were cameras on every section, you would have been amazed at the brutality of it. And we packed up, and I followed the HBO guys down to the press conference because it was just out of control.
That fight changed the security protocols forever at Madison Square Garden. So we did lots of fights in the 2000s there, all those Golada, Ruiz, a whole pile. And that fight changed Madison Square Garden forever in their security scenes. I had a long discussion with the security guard because I used to sit in the stars room because I paid the fighters for many years. And their security protocols changed everything they did. They had, there were no New York City police inside the arena for that fight. That's what took it so long. It took them 15 minutes to get inside the building to get everybody under control. And after that, there were New York City cops inside Madison Square Garden from every fight. In fact, there would be 25 New York City cops in there to make sure that nothing ever got out of control. And things always seemed like that far out of control when I was there for some of those fights. I watched some stuff happen that was incredible, and but the security at Madison Square Garden is fantastic now because of that fight. They changed
it was
everything.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's great.
So, Christy, a final word that you have here today in Christy's Corner, celebrating this time with International Boxing Hall of Famer Christy Salters Martin, boxing photographer and owner of PB&J's Lunchbox on 6630 Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York, Pat Orr, and our special guest, John Moceyunas, here on the broadcast this morning to bring us a lot on the Don King production side, as well as a terrific kind of scope of Central New York, Syracuse football and basketball, and the boxing world in a multi-layered conversation that I can't wait to go back and listen to myself. Christy, do you have a final word here for us? And we may, I know Christy's been traveling here, so final word is that she doesn't have she mic dropped, I guess. But Christy here, I know she's traveling on a plane this morning, and I was going through security. We thought we could bring her on here for a second, but she might still be going through that travel part of it. John, I want to thank you for being a part of the show today. I want to thank you for taking us on a trip down memory lane, and I can honestly tell you that when I'm thinking Don King and I'm thinking Tyson, Holyfield, Muhammad Ali, I never thought we'd start a conversation about my cousin Patrick. So thank you for that, and much appreciation to you and Pat and Christy. And John, I'd love to have you back on the show. It's been my true honor and my pleasure.
Yeah, watch us November 4th and December 2nd on pay-per-view. You can go to fight.tv or donking.com and watch it live. November 4th, fight gets on air at 6 o'clock. December 2nd, we don't have a start time, but it's probably about 7 o'clock. Fight.tv, donking.com. You can watch the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll make sure we share that as well. And we look forward to you watching those fights that are coming up here very soon. And John, as always, thank you for everything you do. Pat and Christy, thank you as well. And I look forward to talking with you soon.
All right,
thank you.
Thank you. See you, John.
Thanks, John. So with that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life, we want to thank you for being a part of the broadcast today and some extra time that we spent with John Moceyunas as well as Pat Orr. And we had a couple minutes with Christy Martin today. Christy, as you know, Christy's Corner, named after Christy Martin, and she was traveling today. So we had to kind of have her in the beginning and then didn't get to have her toward the end, and we obviously wish her safe travels. I know that she's got a lot of work going on, a lot of things that she's doing, so wish her the safest of travels out there today and always, and give her our best and send her our love. We're going to take a step aside for a fast break. When we come back, we'll jump into those Jaguars interviews I promised you right after this.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the HOFer Tata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating. Find them at 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York, open Monday through Saturday in-store and all the time online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, you can order all throughout the country at maandpaspopcorn.com. And remember to get your tins, which have in-store half-price refills forever. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, available to you for fundraising and all of your events by calling 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. He kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
Avicolli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicolli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicolli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there, and of course you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100, and also find them on myavicollis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout central and upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway, PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox. This is a special message from 317 at Montgomery restaurant owner Joel Carpenter. Open Tuesday through Saturday for your dining pleasure on 317 Montgomery Street in Syracuse, New York.
We wanted to be a part of the resurgence of Syracuse. We saw a lot of money being put into bringing people back downtown and thought that, we'd like to be a part of that. I love putting together a good dish where people see it first, they fall in love with it, and then it tastes just as good as it looks. We want to provide the best food in Syracuse that we possibly can, and we want you to leave here talking to your family, your friends about what you had to eat first and foremost, but also our service, and to walk out feeling like you're part of our family. I work out in the front of the house a lot, and I love walking to every single table, asking them how everything is, and people looking at me and smiling and saying, this is the most amazing short rib I've ever had. This is the most amazing filet I've ever had. And Donna is great. Sarah's amazing. Thank you for coming over and talking to us. And then them just being truly happy for the experience that they've gotten.
317 at Montgomery Restaurant, part of the fabric of downtown Syracuse, located on 317 Montgomery Street in Syracuse, New York. Open Tuesday through Saturday for a unique and memorable dining experience. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Happy to be here with you, hanging out every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. and it's time for us to get into On the Prowl, featuring my interviews with the Jacksonville Jaguars. My first conversation with the Jacksonville Jaguars in On the Prowl, the segment that we have and have had for many years in my coverage of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Once again, On the Prowl here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. We're going to start out my conversations with Roy Robertson Harris. We're going to have Roy Robertson Harris on first, the defensive end who was part of the final sack in this game, this victory that they just had over former quarterback Gardner Minshew II, who's now the Colts starter with Anthony Richardson out, going up against the Colts for the second time this season in just 6 weeks. 2 games against the teams within your division here of the AFC South when talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're 2-0 against the Colts. Huge, very meaningful down the stretch, and getting that victory over the Indianapolis Colts at home. The Jacksonville Jaguars had 3 sacks in the game, and the final sack coming from Roy Robertson Harris as well as linebacker Trayvon Walker. Here's my conversation with defensive end Roy Robertson Harris about his play and the defense, just overall looking at this team and the success as they move to 4-2 on the season and 3-0 in the last 3 games. Well, looking at in the second half when you were able to get to Gardner and Trayvon Walker, just what you can say about not only what you guys did on that play, but overall having 3 sacks as a team today.
Just everybody doing their job, man. Made the team one-dimensional, stopped the run early, and made them want to pass the whole game. So everybody do their job, and now we're able to go have fun and rush the quarterback.
You talked about the run defense right there. Just what you can say overall in these first 6 games you feel like you've done as a total defense against the run.
I think we're doing pretty well. We got a lot of good stuff out there, and we just got to keep improving, stacking days.
3 interceptions as well, and I was speaking with the defensive backs about how they know that it starts up front with the havoc that you guys cause. Just what you could say about the fact that, week in, week out, they're able to get interceptions because of what the defensive line is doing.
You stop the run, you go have fun. You stop that run. Guys got to be one-dimensional. They have to pass the ball. So we just continue to play as a unit. Everybody do their job. We all be good. We all be set.
This team took a chance on you. Just what you could say to be here in this locker room and seeing what this team is potentially becoming.
I'm blessed, man. Blessed to be a part of this team. This team in the city shows me a lot of love, so I'm grateful. I'm blessed. And blessed with the group of guys that I get to play with every day.
Was the overseas regroup, refocus, reset, is that what you think what this team truly needed, was to get away in order to kind of figure who you are again and refocus what you need to refocus on?
Well, no matter what time or place, we just going to go play. No matter what we're doing, just going out there and playing, having fun. It could be in London, it could be in Germany, it can be in Mexico, no matter where. Just go out there, have fun, playing ball.
You won in overseas Duval. Now you win at home and get that first victory this season at home. Just what it means to be able to give that to Duval County today.
It's big, man. You got to defend your home turf, and that's what we did today. So it's big. We got to get back on the road for a couple of games, and then come back after the bye and win again at home. So just got to keep sacking.
Just got to keep sacking, he said. And, this defense creating more takeaways than any other defense in the country through the first 6 weeks of the NFL, that being the Jacksonville Jaguars with 15 takeaways in 6 weeks, folks. That's more than 2 per week on average for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Big time congratulations to this defense for all the work that they have put in and continue to put in on a very, very successful outing so far here in these first 6 weeks for the defensive side of the ball for sure. And the team, total team football, we'll talk about as we go on here. I want to go to my next conversation, and that's going to be with Rayshawn Jenkins, the strong safety for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You go back and read my story on Wake Up Call dt.com in our articles, and you will see that the picture I used for that story is Rayshawn Jenkins jumping up into the crowd and celebrating with Duval at the Jacksonville Jaguars Everbank Stadium. And here's my conversation with Rayshawn Jenkins, who had one of the 3 interceptions achieved by the Jaguars in this game. Darius Williams, 3 interceptions in the last 3 games, 1 per game in all victories. Andre Cisco, the former Syracuse DB, had an interception in this game, and so did strong safety Rayshawn Jenkins. This team was having fun today in this game, a return home from London. You jumped up and had a good time with the crowd. Just what you could say about wanting to be out there with them and celebrate with them during the game.
Yeah, I mean, it was great it's always great to incorporate the crowd into it. We really do appreciate, everyone who comes to the game and support us, and we want to make everybody feel it more. Well, I know I do want to make everybody just feel just really involved with the team, and so that's why we kind of, we take our time with the celebrations. We make sure the crowd is in it, and yeah, man, it was fun just being out there.
You have an interception. Andre Cisco has an interception. Darius Williams has an interception. Right. Just what you can say about this back line and the defense.
Man, we really just gelling together really well. The consistency is there. You see that week in and week out. Not only attacking the ball in the air, we're also tackling really well right now. Swarming to the ball. We can really feel the presence of our D-line. Our D-line is doing an amazing job generating pressure and creating chaos up front. So, it makes our job just a little bit easier. And we know once the ball is in the air, it's just our job to finish the play.
It looked like in this game, too, with 3 interceptions, there was a chance to maybe have 5. Mm-hmm. Just what you could say about how locked in you guys were.
Yeah, man, we just understood the game plan really well. Hats off to the coaches of really presenting that game plan to us as well, putting us in the right calls to be able to be in the right spots and everything like that. So, yeah, man, and just like I said, at the end of the day, it's our job to kind of finish those plays and stuff like that.
You had the opportunity to regroup, refocus, kind of reset over in London. Yeah. What did that couple weeks do for this team on and off the field, in your opinion?
I would say, A, it created, the chemistry. The chemistry is already there, but it made us that much tighter as a team. And then B, it really, created some momentum as well. We went over there, we went 2-0 in London, and we knew in order for us to get on that trajectory that we wanted to be on to where we're going, we had to get those games in London. That would have been huge, and we did our job.
On a final note, you created 4 turnovers as a defense in this game. The offense scored on 3 of those 4 turnovers. Just what you can say about total team football.
Oh, it's just great, man. And we always say that, every unit needs to complement each other. When we put the ball in the offense hand, then they did exactly what they were supposed to do today, and if something does go wrong out there, it's our job to kind of just put out the fire and stuff like that. Hats off to the special team as well. They did a really good job.
That coming once again from Rayshawn Jenkins, talking about the special teams. Defense playing well, offense playing well, special teams. Make a note here, Brandon McManus, who they brought in the offseason, longtime kicker. We know he's got a boot, and he was 4 for 4 on extra points, 3 for 3 on field goals from 48, 49, and 51. He kept going a couple steps farther back each field goal attempt that he took in this game for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So definitely like hearing the love for special teams, because that's something that doesn't get the love that it deserves. And I love hearing when somebody gives the credit to, where credit is due, and definitely on the special team side of things, Brandon McManus, and as well as not giving up the big play on special teams when it comes to tackling in the kick return and punt return units and whatnot. So a lot of credit to the Jacksonville Jaguars special teams as well. I want to go to someone who's never been on the show before. That's offensive tackle Anton Harrison, who's been playing right tackle. He is a rookie on the team, and he has gotten involved right away in this team having some early success. And Anton Harrison and I had the opportunity to share some time here on the Prowl inside a wake-up call with Dan Tortora, and this is what he had to say. Just what you could say about, the way that this team is locked in over these past few weeks to win 2 games in London, and obviously to come back here at home and get the victory over the Colts.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult being in London for 10 days, playing 2 games, and coming back here, back on the time switch, and locking in the focus for this game. So we knew it was a big thing. We knew we had to lock in on it. So we've been on it all week, just practicing, knowing what we got to do, coming out here and completing our job.
This offensive line has gone through different iterations due to injuries and whatnot. You've had time where you've had to go out. Cam was out at the beginning of the season. Just what you can say about guys stepping up on this offensive line this year.
With O-line, we're brotherhoods. Everybody know, be ready at any time, anything can happen. So that's what we pride ourselves on. Next guy up, really, if anything happens. So that's kind of our motto. We just go at it and ball out.
What is it about this Jaguars team? I mean, you're a rookie here on the squad. What is it that you've taken away from being in this locker room, in the practice situations, and in games for these first 6 games in the NFL?
I would say really just the effort of everybody, the intensity of everybody, the urgency, because they know we can be week in and week out. When we don't put it out there, everybody's tense and knowing it. So just everybody knowing what we got to do, and I like seeing that, and just intensity and practice, things like that. Just get each other better, so iron sharpen iron.
When you got drafted by the Jaguars, did you see a track to be a starter right away?
Obviously, that's something I always wanted to do, so I'm going to say yeah, but my main thing was to come in and just work, prove myself to everybody, my teammates, the coaches, things like that, and just come out here on Sundays and keep proving it.
When you see guys on this team like a Cam Robinson, like a Walker Little, Shatley, who now has the most starts consecutively in franchise history, what are you taking from the veterans?
Everything. Recovery routines, how they practice, how they treat their bodies, strength and conditioning things. Just trying to take everything, because I want to be where they are, be in the league as long as them doing what they're doing. So those just like my big brothers, guys I look up to, try to ask any questions I got. They always there for me, so definitely good role models for me.
And coming from Anton Harrison, speaking on the role models of this offensive line, one of them being someone who now has the most consecutive games played for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that being Tyler Shatley. A big-time shout-out to Tyler Shatley, who was on the show within the last couple weeks here, an offensive lineman that's been utilized by the Jaguars wherever they need him, and he has been a Swiss Army knife, and he has definitely been a huge assist for them when injuries have come up, and working his way into being somebody that we see out here more often, and definitely the definition of hard work, dedication, determination, perseverance, faith, and trust in yourself and in your craft. So a shout out to him for all of those things. Another athlete that we haven't had on the broadcast before here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on the Prowl is linebacker Kaylavon Chason, and I'm so very much excited to be able to share some time with him here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on the Prowl, and to be able to share it with you, as he's someone that ever since he got drafted was excited for the opportunity to be able to speak with him and hear the game from his mindset. So here's Kaylavon Chason after the victory over the Colts that has now led the team to a 4-2 start with a 3-0 streak so far. Defensively, overall in this matchup, you guys created 4 turnovers. The offense scored on 3 of those 4. Just total team football and what the defense did today.
Defense. We had our part when it came to the turnover battle. We still want to finish. You know what I'm saying? Not to be heavy critical on us, but you know what I'm saying. In the second half, we kind of slacked off a little bit, and we gave up some unnecessary yards and points. So that's just kind of the focus that we're kind of thinking about right now.
And when you look at that, like you said, slacked off a little bit, was it just looking at the lead and kind of playing back a little bit, or how do you assess that?
Well, I don't have the exact answer for you, but it is something that we got to tighten up on if we want to hit the next level on, you know what I'm saying, to be that dominant team and that tier 1 team that we know that we can be.
How close are you as a team to being that dominant team that you think you can get to?
I think real close, like really close. Obviously, we're going on a 3-game streak right here, so obviously with this short week coming up and getting a chance to go against, a different opponent in New Orleans, it's another team, it's another opportunity to establish how dominant we are as a team, in all 3 phases.
When you look at that opportunity to go overseas, regroup, refocus, reset, and be over in London for a couple weeks, what did that do for this team?
It definitely, it isolated us, reminded that it's about us, the energy, the focus and everything that we need to do, to be that dominant team is coming from within us, focusing attention to all details, depending on your brothers to make sure they handle their 111. So it was a good retreat, we handled business during that part, and I feel like it was a good shake back and refocus after, the 2 we dropped before.
You called it a retreat. I like that word. Why use that word?
You know what I'm saying? It's still it's a blessing. You know what I'm saying? It's a blessing to go out there and enjoy, you know what I'm saying, a different scenery. You know what I'm saying? The NFL has blessed us with the opportunity to play overseas. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of guys' first time going there. So at the end of the day, you still obviously have to enjoy where you at. You know what I'm saying? Enjoy where your feet are. But at the end of the day, we have no business. So like I said, it was good to see, you know what I'm saying, get a new fresh air and get scenery and just, like I said, isolate and just always think about us, you know what I'm saying, and everything is going to come within us, you know, to be where we want to be.
Final note, you won in what I call the overseas Duval, but to get this first win at home this season, just what that means to you to give it to the fans here in Duval County.
That's a heavy focus for us, because that's the main thing we've been talking about is winning at home. And like I said, we dropped 2 at home, which is something that we're not wanting to do, especially against a division opponent. So just going forward, you know what I'm saying, it is a heavy focus on winning at home, you know what I'm saying, and playing with our advantage with the home crowd, you know what I'm saying, going forward when you're trying to get to these, you know what I'm saying, the postseason, at home field advantages and things in that outcome. So it's really critical and it's really important to us. And going forward, we're going to keep emphasizing it.
Coming from Caleb on Chase on, and I, you know, like he said, winning in Duval, that it's a focus for them, taking care of home, making sure that you get those victories in front of your crowd. And the home away from home, they did it in London, but to now get that monkey off their back, they lost their first 2 games at home this season. I was there for both of those. A game against Kansas City where they went 0 for 4 in the red zone, should have beaten Kansas City, held them under 20. It was 17-9 as a total. And then Houston, it's almost just like I wonder if it's a mental thing at this point. You know, 6 straight years of losing at home to the Houston Texans, no matter what type of team Houston is and what type of team Jacksonville is. Jacksonville hasn't been able to beat Houston in Duval County in the last 6 years. So figuring those things out, going to London, reset, refocus, regroup, like I spoke with the guys about going into it. And they did exactly that. They figured things out, you know, got together and definitely worked together and reset and refocused and had an opportunity to regroup. And we saw 2 victories come from that, but now they have a victory at home in Duval. And I know that means a lot to the team, and it means a lot, obviously, to the community in Duval County. So big ups to Jacksonville, now 1-2 at home after their victory over the Colts here over the weekend. And with that being said, the next conversation I have on the Prowl here in my one-on-ones with the Jacksonville Jaguars is going to be with Dewan Smoot. Dewan Smoot back on the team here, outside linebacker. Dewan going through injury when I talk about being back on the team, and so happy to see him here again. And I love that this locker room talks about faith so openly. It's something I have appreciated more than anything else in these last couple seasons, and it is my definite privilege to have Dewan Smoot speak on that right now. Well, just getting back, you know, just the road to get back and the adversity, what you can say about being back out here.
It just feels so good to be back out here with my brothers, you know, and me being able to contribute on my second rep of the game. It just, all the emotions all came in, you know, all the days, all the nights of just thinking about how much time was put back into this injury. I just want to say thank you to God, you know, all glory to God, and I'm back.
Faith is something that's extremely important to me. I know it's important to this locker room. How did you lean on your faith through all of this?
I lean on it strong. I mean, I feel like before the injury and stuff like that, I feel like God told me, like, had a message for me, like, sat me down so I can get closer to Him. I brought my wife in, brought my kids in, and we got closer to God. We started reading the Bible more and started going to church. So, I mean, faith is so important, and I've gotten closer to Him over this time.
When you look at time of adversity, leaning on God, when things start going well, just what you could say about making sure that you continue to have that close relationship with God now that you're back on the field?
I mean, it's easy. You know, you talk to Him every day. I know I talk to Him every day. I pray to Him every day. Let Him know, you know, that I'm grateful and that He just keeps working through me, and I just do what I have to do and put His talents out there, you know, together God-given. So,
Jaguars gave you an opportunity a bunch of years ago. You're still here in this locker room. What does it mean to you that this team has believed in you the whole time?
I mean, it means a lot. I mean, I just want to say thank you, you know. All these years, you know, a lot of guys have came in ahead of me, you know. I've been pushed down the depth chart, you know, and crawled my way back up as well, too. So, I mean, I'm just happy that I'm still here, still able to contribute. Well, it's my 7th year now, so I'm just trying to keep stacking the years.
I remember the first year that you were in here and your locker room was over, or locker's over on that side. Does it feel like it's flown by?
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, you look back and it's just like 2017 year, and it just feels like it was like yesterday. So I mean, it's definitely flown by for sure.
What is it about this team that makes you believe that this squad can go somewhere this season?
This is just the closest that we have in the locker room. I mean, you can see it like it's like no clicks. Everybody's like close. So I mean, it's really giving me and what I've seen 2017. How we're able to dominate. The closeness that we have in the locker room can't beat us.
Were there clicks before that you could kind of tell when you first came in?
Not really. No, I'm not going to give you that.
When you said it's gotten better, though, like the culture's gotten better, is that a Doug Peterson thing?
Yeah, I would definitely say since Doug got in, since we got a leader in here, since he's been here, I feel like he's set out a path for us to, really go out and do some special things. So.
When you look at this D-line and the rotation that y'all have, what is it about this front line of the defense that's so special to you when you look at the different guys that are coming in and out?
I mean, like we say, it's the next man up. I mean, the great thing is that we don't miss a beat. We have a special rotation with the starters and with the backup. So, I mean, we really got something special here. So,
the offense scored on 3 of the 4 turnovers that the defense forced in this game at home against the Colts. Just what that means to you to give the offense opportunities and see that they came through on most of those.
It's great. I mean, it's team football. We're playing on all facets, and like people say, defense wins championships. So we keep giving them the ball, they keep scoring, we win. So it's a win-win.
Keep giving the ball, they score, we win. That total team football is something that I can definitely appreciate. And I brought into my conversation with Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So coming off of what DeJuan Smoot said, that total team football, and now my conversation, my Q&A with Trevor Lawrence about exactly that total team football, having 4 turnovers that were created by the defense in this game at home against the Colts, 3 of them on interceptions, 1 on a fumble recovery, and the Jacksonville team scored, and I say the Jacksonville team because special teams also was involved here. Jacksonville scored on 3 of 4 of the turnovers created by their defense, and so that total team football effect is the topic of discussion when I had the opportunity to speak with Trevor Lawrence. This is what he had to say. Trevor, 4 turnovers that the defense created today. You scored on 3 of them. Just what you can say about total team football.
It's huge. I think that's the thing. We're playing complementary. We've done that the last 3 weeks now. We've won all 3 of those games. It's kind of, it definitely it ties together. And even today, I don't know what the stats were, but we were good in the first half. Second half didn't move the ball much, didn't have a ton of yards. But when you have the turnovers and you're scoring off turnovers that the defense is providing, and it doesn't look like necessarily, you look at the stat sheet that we played that great, but you look at the turnover margin and you look at the points off turnovers, and that's huge. And we're just playing really complementary. That's what the good teams do. You take advantage when the other team makes mistakes, and you limit your mistakes. And that's what I think we're doing a better job of through these last 3 games.
So taking advantage of the mistakes that other teams make and doing what you need to do, right? Playing together. The good teams find a way to bring it all together. Defense creates opportunities. Offense capitalizes on those opportunities. Special teams put you in a good position when you are playing defense and put you in a good position to start things on offense as well. So much respect for Trevor Lawrence about that. And he knows what good teams are all about because he was a part of what it was like to win a national championship in the collegiate ranks at Clemson and to have so much success before that when he was in high school as well. My final conversation comes with tight end Evan Engram. Evan Engram had a one-handed grab by the sideline. He also leapt over a player shortly after. He is a big man of faith, and I appreciate that tremendously. Love my conversations with Evan, and I'm so happy to have him back on the show. This is what he had to say after the Jaguars defeated the Colts at 37-20 and moved forward to a 4-2 record and improved their winning streak to 3 straight games. On this game, Trevor targeted you 7 times. You caught all 7. Just what you can say about locking in.
We work our ass off every week. Just me and him. Obviously, he works with all his receivers, but we're real locked in. We're real on the same page. I try to communicate as much with him about little things, and he does vice versa. So we're just really locked in together. We put a lot of work in during the week, and on Sundays we want to come out here and execute. He's really accurate as well. So obviously, I I work on my hands and trying to be consistent there too.
You got a one-handed grab by the sideline, maybe leap over somebody. Just what you could say about how you were feeling today.
Just letting it loose. I work hard, and I feel like I'm one of the best at my position, and got to go prove it every week. So, like I said, he puts the football in a great spot, and my instincts can just take over, and then try to be special with the ball in my hands after the catch.
There was a lot of hype coming in when you went over to the Giants, and then there was some criticism and adversity. Do you feel like this new life with Jacksonville is really showing who you truly are?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a part of it. I've definitely matured and grown into a true professional that handles my business and find things to get better at each and every day, and just working hard, really making the choice of emptying the tank every day, and that's been paying off. And obviously the environment I'm into, this franchise, the people, my teammates, and everything that we've been through in the past year and a half is really we're on the right track. So it's a great place. God has me right where he needs me, right where he wants me, and where I'm supposed to be.
What was it about going to London to go 2-0 over there when you had an opportunity to regroup and kind of reset and refocus? What happened in London to bring you guys to that point of 2-0 and now 3-0?
Yeah, we were really pissed off after that Houston game. That was a really low point for us. We knew we were way better than that, and we kind of got an opportunity to kind of shut out everything, get away, really be together 24/7 as we're in this process, and we went to war with the right mindset against Atlanta, and same thing with Buffalo, and same thing today. So I think that that embarrassment we felt against Houston really tumbled us into holding each other a little bit more accountable, and understanding that nothing's going to be given to us. We got to go take everything that we want. So that was a mentality that we took that week going into leaving, and then when we left we were together, and we were honing in on that.
That coming once again from Evan Engram here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life, in my conversations with the Jacksonville Jaguars in our segment here on Wake Up Call entitled On the Prowl, a yearly coverage of the Jacksonville Jaguars and Q&As with the squad, and appreciate them as always. They will each air, as their own separate special on all of our podcasting outlets. You'll be able to hear each of these individual Q&As. So you'll hear me with Evan Engram in one show. You'll hear Trevor Lawrence. Then you'll hear Anton Harrison. So they will all be separated into their direct Q&As on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. We'll take a final step aside and be back with your ingredients to success right after this. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you. Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
Our
corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also, I think we recognize that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was, selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career, it's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
GG Cards and Breaks. Like, comment, subscribe.
GG Cards and Breaks, located for you on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York. Right off of Teal Ave, is open 7 days a week, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and on Sundays from 10 to 5. They are your premier sports card shop. They care about you. That's the difference. It's that personal touch. It's you walk through the door, they remember your name. They get to know you over time. They know the cards you like. They know the teams you like. They might tell you, hey, we just got this in, and whatever it may be. They're excited about the craft. That's what I love about going in there and talking with Josh and Anthony and Alex and Joel and the crew, is that they have passion. They have passion for the hobby. They have passion for the community, and they love seeing people have a good time and people have fun. And that to me means a lot to me. They're not just workers at any old job. They're people that actually enjoy sports card collecting, and it's just so much fun to go in there and have a conversation. Every time I walk in and I walk out, I think to myself, when's the next time I'm going back in? Can I go back in tomorrow? And that's how I was as a little kid, and they gave that back to me. So if you are making new memories, it is the same hobby, but those new memories should be had at GG Cards and Breaks. And if you've never ever collected cards before, a great place to have a great impression of sports cards and this community is to go to GG Cards and Breaks and help out those that truly care and have compassion and just an overall love for the sports card world, as well as Central and Upstate New York. So I look forward to seeing you at GG Cards and Breaks, 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York, right off of Teal Ave. With that being said, it's time for us to jump into the ingredients to success, proudly presented by the wonderful team at Avicolli's. Avicolli's is a wonderful, wonderful establishment with fantastic Italian food. I go there a lot, and I love their grandma's pie, and I got to shout out Coach Sindoni because he put me on to the grandma's pie. There was a bunch of different pizzas I was getting at Avicolli's, and now that one is my favorite of my favorite of my favorite. It's definitely taken the new seat there. And in my all-time favorites at Avicolli's, there's so many awesome things that you could find there by going Tuesday through Sunday. They are closed on Mondays, so from Tuesday through Sunday, go to 7839 Oswego Road in Liverpool, New York. Literally right down the road from Liverpool High School. You can walk to and from Liverpool High School from Avicolli's. So come out to Avicolli's today, and we look forward to seeing you out there. And, of course, a big-time shout-out to them for catering as well as delivery and takeout by calling 315-622-5100. That's 315-622-5100, or going to myavicollis.com. That's myavicollis.com. So, with that being said, my ingredients to success for today, my topic for today, dealing with people who do not respect you and treat you with kindness or treat you the way that you treat them. It's one of the hardest things to deal with, and it's one of the things that will constantly sit on some people's minds. How do I deal with somebody who treats me the opposite of how I treat them? They treat me poorly. They're not respectful. They're not kind. They're not consistent. How do I treat those people? How do I find a way to navigate through the waters of dealing with people that don't talk to me with any respect or don't greet me how I greet them, or people that change up on you? The change-ups, right? It's not just a baseball pitch. It's something that happens in life. The change-up of life. When you are good to somebody consistently every single day, every time you see them, hey, how you doing? Great to see you. You know, it's always positive. It's always kind. I mean, to me, it's not hard. It's not hard to go out into this world, walk up to someone, say, hey, how are you doing today? Mean it, shake their hand, listen to hear what they have to say, talk to them for a few minutes and say, oh, you know, it was great to see you. I'll give you a phone call. It'll be great to catch up. I treat everybody with kindness, even when that person has met me with negativity, with swearing, yelling, inconsistency, lack of respect, lack of, caring about my time, whatever it may be. I'm still nice to those people. I'm still nice to them. And trust me, it's hard. It's hard to be nice to people who are really, really, really disrespectful. It's very hard to be nice to those people. But Jesus didn't walk this earth and say, just be nice to the good people, because that's easy, right? It's easy to be nice to someone who's nice to you, but it's difficult to be nice to someone who is not kind to you, who does not offer you consistency. And I've dealt with that. I've dealt with people where I'm nice to them every time I see them, and it's nice, 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 open door, open door, open door, and then one day you go to open the door and it's locked. And then it unlocks and you go, why is the door locked? And they don't have an explanation, but they lock it again. And you say, okay, well, nothing happened here. Why is the door locked? See, I'm not that type of person. If you're good to me and you're a part of my life and I can trust you and we have a good bond and it's a bond built, to me, it's a bond built on God, because anything that's not built on God is doomed to fail and will fail. But when I look at relationships, when I speak to somebody and I give you that respect and that kindness, you're not going to see me 2 days from now and I'm going to, ignore your phone call, ignore your text message, yell at you, fight with you, disrespect you. You have to be, and it's something that my mom said, I'm like my grandfather in this, and shout out to my Papa Cavino. His lucky day was just this past Friday the 13th. My mom said that it was extremely difficult for him to get angry at anybody. Extremely difficult. And that once you did, it was because you made a consistent effort to be rude. And if you ever got him mad, it took him the longest time, but when he got there, he was there. And that was it. He got there, and he was there, and that was it. This person just poke, and my grandfather wasn't easy to anger, but when you made him angry, that was it. And she said, you're just like your grandfather. People have to be diligent in just constantly being rude and disrespectful and inconsistent and just a pain in the butt before you turn around and are like, you know what, that's enough. But once it's enough forever. And that's enough. And not that, people don't make mistakes, but, I always say that there's only one type of person I don't like on this planet, and that's a diligent blank. I say a-hole, but a diligent, somebody who every single day is like, I'm just going to be ridiculous. Or somebody who's just wildly inconsistent. They're nice to you, they scream at you. They're nice to you, they scream at you. Think about being in a marriage with somebody, and some of you may be that are watching and listening right now, and I feel terrible if this is the case. But think about being in a marriage where your wife kisses you, she kisses you Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning when you wake up and says she loves you. And on Tuesday and Thursday, when you wake up, she screams in your face and says she hates you and wants a divorce. How would you deal with that up and down? I love you, I hate you. I love you, I hate you. I love you, I hate you. And I've dealt with that with people. I've dealt with the answer the phone, answer the phone, answer the phone, ignore, see you in public, pretend like they haven't ignored you for a year, go back to ignoring you, see you in public, kind again, go back to ignoring you, see you in public, kind to you, kind, answer the phone, go back to ignoring you. And you sit here and you go, what is going on? What is going on? And dealing with people that disrespect you, that just treat you, and when I talk about disrespect, I'm saying they're treating you in a way where you feel you would never do to them. They're handling you in a way that you feel is not kind. And, I can't for the life of me tell you why people switch up. I can't tell. I mean, there's people that have stories that they're like, hey, I married this guy. We were married for 30 years. We have 2 kids. One day I woke up. There was a letter on the kitchen table, and he said, I'm leaving to go be with your sister, and we're going to go move to Wisconsin, and that's the end. 30 years of marriage. Now I'm going to shack up with your sister. Have a great life. Tell the kids I said hello. And people say, how? Like, how did this happen? And what I think we need to stop doing is stop attacking the people that it's happening to. Because, yeah, sometimes you are responsible, right? You might have said something or done something, and that might cause the person to switch up. Or you may have done absolutely nothing. So what are the ingredients to success of dealing with people that don't respect you? Well, number one, if you don't have to be around them, let's say like you don't have to work together, if it's a friend and it happens consistently, I don't mean to rip this off like a Band-Aid, but get rid of the friendship. You don't need to be friends with somebody that is not consistent with you and doesn't treat you with respect and kindness. You don't need to be with someone who loves you 1 minute and then ignores you the next minute. With a friend who is all about hanging out with you and then ignores you for weeks or months and whatever, and by the time they get back to you, you're sitting here thinking, what is this friendship? You don't need that friend in your life. I can promise you that. You don't need that friend. You might think you need that friend, but you don't need that friend. And I think that, I think it's the same thing with relationships, like romantic relationships. If you're dating somebody, right, and you call them up and you're like, hey, you want to go out? And they're like, yeah. And you go out and you have a great time. And they say, I had a wonderful time with you. This was an amazing time. I can't wait to see you again. And then you're like, okay, cool. I'll give you a call. And then you give them a call and they don't answer for 3 weeks. And then they're like, hey, what's up? You want to get together? And you're sitting here going like, I thought we had a great time. I haven't heard from you in 3 weeks. What happened, right? You have every right to ask those questions. But a lot of times we don't because we're afraid of the answers. We're afraid of someone saying they lost interest or they were dating a bunch of people and you were the second choice, right? Like I had a great time with you on a date. You haven't heard from me in 3 weeks because my ex-boyfriend called me and I wanted to hang out with him to see if there was any fire back. And now that there isn't, or at least isn't right now, you and I can hang out until I decide to go back to him again. And that's not healthy So you have to create boundaries in your life. And you have to look at, my dad told me this a long time ago, a person is who they are most of the time. So when I had dated a girl back in like the end of college and out of college. And I kept saying to my dad, I was like, man, I just want to get back to the relationship we had. And he said, how long was the relationship good? I said, 3 months. He said, how long has she been, just kind of like rude and yelling and this and that, whatever? I said, 8 months. He said, who she is who she's been more of the time. And she was good the first 3 months and the last 8 have been bad. It's not like it was good for 1, bad for 2, good for 3, because that's not good either. But he said, in the beginning, everything was sunshine and rainbows. For almost a year now, it's been a headache. It's been really stressful. So who do you think she is? Do you think she's the girl that was the 3-month girl? Or she thinks she was the 8-month girl? Because who she's been more consistently and who she's been more often is who she is. In the beginning, she might have just been trying to show you the best side of her, right? So she can bring in, get you. Guys and girls do that all the time to people. They put on a facade, they bring you in, they latch onto a good person, they milk that good person dry, and then they leave that person on the ground shivering and they go find another person. If you let them. So you have to create boundaries, and you have to look at who somebody is consistently. Saying, this person was really nice the one time I talked to him, but the other 17 times I talked to them, they were aloof, they rushed the conversation, they screamed at me, they were rude. Okay. So you've gone through 17 abusive conversations hoping that you get your second kind one. Instead of just saying, screw it. The kind conversation was a minority, and that's it. But why do people switch up? Why do people change? Sometimes it's something you did, and sometimes it's something that has nothing to do with you. And it's very hard in life to not take things personally because it feels personal, right? It feels personal. And, people say that all the time. How am I not supposed to take something personally when somebody personally said something to me, right? They said it to me. And it's like, yeah, but it's not personal. And it's like, well, how is it not personal? They said it to me. And it's something that was really hard for me to understand because that is difficult to have somebody tell you don't take something personal when somebody just said something to you or did something to you and they tell you, yeah, but it wasn't for you. Maybe they were having a bad day and you were the first person that they saw or whatever it may be. But all I can say to people in the ingredients to success of this, be kind to everyone. Be nice to everyone. If you're having a bad day, don't take it out on somebody else. If you just fought with your mom, don't fight with your dad. If you just fought with your wife, don't fight with your kids. If you just fought with your best friend, don't fight with a stranger. Because all it does is it creates more problems for you to have to solve. There's a fire right now with your wife. And if you go and you fight with your dad and you fight with your mom, now there's 3 fires to put out, not 1. Now you have to apologize. Now you have to figure out what's going on with your wife. Then you have to apologize to your mom. You have to apologize to your dad. You make your life more difficult the more you pass the buck forward of negativity. Don't do that. Don't do that. And to the people that think it's okay to switch up on someone who's been nothing but kind and good to you, when someone gives you their time, their respect, when they purposefully give you of their time and their talents and they get around you and they spend time with you, if you don't respect those people, you don't deserve those people in your life. And I'm going to say that again because we think in today's day and age we can do whatever we want. If you don't respect the goodness that you have, you don't deserve to keep it. You don't. Some people get a ring on their finger and they go, oh, cool, now I can do whatever I want to this person because they're stuck with me. Just because you got the promotion doesn't mean you can't get fired. That's what I tell people all the time. If you're dating and you get engaged, just because that person got a promotion doesn't mean they can't get fired. Right? Because the rules within the company are still the same. You got a promotion, but you still can't steal money from the company. You can't be like, well, I'm the CEO. I used to be a lowly employee. Now I'm the CEO and I steal money, but I got a promotion, so that rule doesn't apply to me. No, the rule applies to everybody. And what we need to do in life is stop worrying, because worrying is of the devil. Worrying is what the devil wants. Fear is what the devil wants. That is how the devil becomes powerful in your life, is when you get afraid. You get afraid to stand up for yourself. You get afraid to do the right thing. You get afraid to chase your dreams because you're afraid of what other people are going to do. You're afraid of what they think. You're afraid of what they say. You're afraid. You date a bunch of people and you have a lot of bad experience. So then you're afraid. So when you finally meet a good person, you're afraid. The devil's trying to keep you from that gift that God gave you because of all those things before. If you're too afraid to take it, then the devil wins and you lose. It's obviously easier said than done. That's a given. But we are not called to be children of chaos, and we are not called to be children of disrespect. We're not called to be children of inconsistency. We're not called to be children of a lack of faith. We're not called to be children of worry and doubt and fear. We're called to be children of love and belief and faith and hope. And the only thing that I can tell you at 37 years old is it takes a long time for it to click, but once it clicks, you get it. And once you get it, you realize you don't like bullies. And when you're kind to someone 100% of the time, and you do everything you can to be there, and maybe you make mistakes, maybe you're 5 minutes late, maybe you forgot to set something up, maybe whatever. But when somebody knows your heart, they know, okay, they were late, but not because they were out, doing drugs and donuts in a parking lot. If they were late, then there's got to be a reason to what's going on to why they were late. And as much as I don't appreciate that they were, I know who this person is. We jump the gun in relationships, right? We meet somebody, they're our best friend today. And sometimes that can happen, but you might not know who that person is. That's why the 90-Day Fiancé shows like that are just ridiculous, because 3 months is not enough time to get to know anybody for the rest of your life. I've dated people for years, and I was finding things out about them 7 years into dating that I didn't know about them. I married somebody that I'm like, man, I should have dated her for a lot longer, or I should have cut that thing a lot shorter, because if I was going to stay with her, I really would have loved to have not married her and got to know her and been 3 or 4 years in and been like, wow, this is who she is. This is not who I am. It doesn't mean she's a bad person. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person, but we're definitely not on the same wavelength, and we're going to butt heads all the time because our foundation of how we deal with life is so different. So the best advice that I can give you on dealing with people who are inconsistent is, if you don't have to deal with them, take them out of your life. If that's a friend or a girlfriend or a boyfriend, family member even, take them out of your life. Just stop putting yourself around it. Don't be mean. Don't be hateful. Don't tell them, hey, I'm taking you out of my life, screw you, da-da-da. Just stop the nonsense. Just say, hey, this isn't working for me. This isn't healthy for me. And chances are the person who's being unhealthy, it may scream at you, may guilt trip you. Normally, the people that are causing you stress are not going to cause you less stress when you tell them that you're taking a step back from them. If anything, they're going to create more stress. But you have a finite amount of time on this earth. And that has never been more clear to me than now. That how you live your life, how you choose to live your life, who you choose to live your life around, what you choose to spend your time talking about, thinking about, worrying about, praying about, what you do with your time. That's it. That's the time that you have. And once it's done, it's done. So you have to chickadee check yourself, essentially. And you have to ask yourself, okay, if I'm in a relationship, business, personal, romantic, whatever, I'm in a relationship and I'm nice to this person every day. And every time I see him, I'm kind to them. I got a buddy, Ross. We got in one argument in 15 years. And I still don't understand what we were arguing about. I was eating lunch. He said something to me. I didn't think that it was we have different religions and same God, just different religion. And we were talking about something and he said he didn't like something and I didn't think that I was pushing something. And so I was kind of like blindsided by it. And I was like, hey, I didn't know that was bothering you, but I definitely don't think I said it. And I definitely wasn't trying to imply it or push it. And it was like it was a short conversation. It was kind of like, what's going on? Why are we upset? Right? And then there were other moments. There were moments where he wanted me to be at something. I wanted him to be on time for something. And you have those discussions. But 15 years later, we talk every single day. We talk every single day. And if something's not clear, then I seek that clarity. I just did it with him yesterday. I had asked him a question a couple times. I didn't get an answer. And I was like, hey, man, like, is this what you're trying to say to me? Because if it is, just say it so that we can talk about it. Because I'm a person where I want to meet something head on. You don't deal with problems by hiding from them. You don't deal with problems by pretending they don't exist. You deal with problems head on. And it sucks. And that's why a lot of people don't do it. How many times have you heard a person in your life say, I'm not confrontational? Why didn't you tell your boss about da-da-da? I'm not confrontational. Why didn't you stick up to your girlfriend? I'm not confrontational. Why didn't you tell your husband you don't appreciate? I'm not confrontational. Why did you let that person talk to you that? I'm not confrontational. We hear it all the time. You don't have to be confrontational. But I don't succumb to bullies. I'm not going to have you bully me into a corner. You're not going to tell me what to do and how to do it. You are not going to run my steering wheel in my car. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do, absolutely am I not going to back down. Because in business, I have learned, and in personal life, I have learned that people will push. Sometimes they know and sometimes they don't. But I think they know most of the time, but that's just my opinion. They'll push. And if you don't do anything, they'll push again. They'll bully you out of where you are. And they don't have to yell at you and they don't have to swear at you. They don't have to ever say a bad word to you, but they will test you. If you're in business with somebody and they promise you something and they don't do it or they half do it or they kind of do it or they put stipulations on it that weren't there before and you don't say anything, guess what? Guess what? In their mind, you've accepted their mediocrity. You've accepted the subpar diluted product that you did not get promised, and you've accepted that. And now that you've accepted that, that's what you're going to get from here on out. And then they're going to push somewhere else. I've seen it in dating. I've seen it in friendships. I've seen it in business. When somebody doesn't do what they're supposed to do, what they promised to do, and I stay silent, they push until they try to push me off a cliff. Let's see how far I can make this person go if they're afraid to confront me, if they're afraid to talk to me. I'm not afraid to talk to anybody. I would do an interview right now with Kim Jong-un. Sit down with him right now. Why not? Sit down with Putin. Sit down with Trump. Sit down with Biden. Sit down with whoever. Why not? Sit down with the Pope. Why be afraid of talking to another human being? They are flesh and blood. If you stab them, they bleed. If you hurt them, they cry. If you hug them, they smile. Right? We need to stop treating human beings that are standing between us and our happiness. They're not standing between us and our happiness. We're standing between us and our happiness. They might be a conductor, right? They might be a match to the dynamite, but we're setting that dynamite up. We don't have to have a bad life. We don't have to have a negative attitude. We choose to. And bullies thrive on your fear of standing up for what is right and standing up for respect. Sometimes asking someone for respect means losing that person, but I would rather lose 100% of the people that disrespect me than keep my mouth shut when they do. I don't care if you're my friend. I don't need you. I don't care if you're a business that doesn't want to work with me. I don't need you. Because as long as you know that you're doing things right, you're doing what you promised, you're doing what you said you were going to do, As long as you are treating with people with kindness and compassion and respect, you don't have anything to apologize for. So sometimes it takes getting pushed so many times before you stand up for yourself. But I hope today you find that voice inside of you where you say, I'm not going to swear, I'm not going to yell, I'm not going to disrespect who disrespected me, but I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm going to do it in a calm, compassionate, and kind way because that is who I am. But I'm going to stick up for myself. I don't come from a long line of wimps and wusses and doormats. I come from a long line of strong people. And I can promise you that no matter what line of people you have come from, the time for you to stick up for yourself is right now. The time for you to do right in your life and for your health is right now. So if you're dealing with somebody who does not treat you with kindness, or they've treated you with kindness every single time you've interacted with them, and now all of a sudden they're different, and you didn't do anything in between, there's nothing that you said or did, and you've even addressed it and said, I don't think there's anything I said I did. Is there something I said or did? You know deep down inside of you, I don't care what anybody says, you know deep down inside of you when you've done something wrong. We all have a conscience. No matter how quiet we try to make the voice, we all have a conscience. And that's going to tell you, yeah, this person's right for being upset with you, or no, this person is being ridiculous. Okay? My conscience, your guide. Your conscience is your guide. It's God's voice saying, check yourself, or you're good. There's times in my life where I've checked myself and I felt God go, you didn't do anything. And there's other times where I felt that feeling in my pit of my stomach where I'm like, this one's on me. This one I did. Right? But one of the hardest things that we have is how do we go from having a great relationship with somebody that we continue to build on consistently, and one day they're just different. They just stop being nice. They stop being respectful. They change the terms of this. They change that. Well, let me ask you this question, if that doesn't make sense to you. Why did we take Jesus Christ and nail him on a cross? Why did we get a murderer out of jail to take an innocent person, spit on him, throw stones at him, make him bleed, whip him, put a crown of thorns on his head, make him walk with a heavy wooden cross throughout this entire long journey to his death, nailed him to it, left him in the sun to bake and die, when he did nothing to anybody? A perfect human being, God in human, did nothing wrong. And we killed him. So why are you surprised if somebody who you've been consistently good to, not occasionally great to, all of a sudden switches up on you? You cannot ruin your day in mindless information. If it's important enough to you, address it. And based on their answer, decide what you're going to do. Because if anything has been proven in my life, there is not a single person that can stand in my way and stop me. Because God is great. And God is all the time good. Not sometimes. And that's the truth. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, bringing you the ingredients to success, proudly presented by Avicolli's. Make sure you come out to Avicolli's every Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. As always, drink responsibly. Avicolli's on 7839 Oswego Road in Liverpool, New York, down the road from Liverpool High School, and the home of our monthly Liverpool Warriors Spotlight broadcast. We'll be there tomorrow. Very excited for this. We'll be there tomorrow night, so I can't wait to be out there with you. We'll be there tomorrow night, which is Wednesday, October 18th at 6 p.m. with Jeff Ross and his girls tennis team from Liverpool High School. Looking forward to spending some time with the Warriors. As always, you can go out there to 78 39 Oswego Road tomorrow night, and Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks, like I said. And for catering, takeout, and delivery, call 315-622-5100. That's 315-622-5100. YouTube.com, Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com is where you listen and watch Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora live, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Once the shows go live, they jump into the archive on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, YouTube. Search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. And a big time thanks to our incredible partners, Carvel DeWitt, where I have my own sundae, the DT Dolphin, in honor of the Lemoyne Dolphins, mint chocolate chip, green for the Dolphins, topped off with whipped cream, a cherry, hot fudge, green and gold sprinkles for the Lemoyne College Dolphins, and a chocolate dolphin jumping out of your whipped cream. Nothing like it anywhere else, and no dolphins at any other Carvel franchise that I know of. So this is history in the making down the road from Lemoyne College. Go and get your DT Dolphin today, exclusively at Carvel DeWitt on 4322 East Genesee Street. It is what happy tastes like. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, GG Cards and Breaks, the Wildcat Sports Pub, Chick-fil-A Clay. Chick-fil-A Cicero is closed for refurbishment. We look forward to them opening soon. Make sure you head out to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York. Canine Camp Dog Daycare, 317 at Montgomery Street. The name of the restaurant is the name of the location, and the Taste of Mexico Burger is continuing on from last month into my birth month, which I am so ecstatic for. Shout out Viva la Raza, and make sure you get out to 317 at Montgomery Street to get their Smash Burger, their Taste of Mexico Burger, and all of their awesome sandwiches and dinner items. Their menu is exquisite. You will not be disappointed. 317 at Montgomery Street. That's my 5-star Michelin restaurant right here in my backyard. Big time thanks to them. Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Pizza Man, Mother's Cupboard, where I have my own breakfast sandwich available 7 days a week. 3709 James Street in Syracuse, New York. Get the Cuse McMother, bacon, egg, and cheese inside of 2 pieces of French toast. Pick it up and eat it like a sandwich. Cut it up and eat it with some syrup, and make sure that you do not miss out on it at Mother's Cupboard, a staple of Syracuse, and the Cuse McMother, your new favorite breakfast sandwich that you can get 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. daily. PB&J's Lunchbox, Great Lakes Honda City, Avicolli's, and of course we are the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Lemoyne College Dolphins. It's Fins Up every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. The Dolphins joining you in Dolphin time every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. First and third Wednesday, AD and DT with Athletics Director Bob Beretta and myself, Dan Tortora. Every second and fourth Wednesday, you'll get the Dolphin Dive, diving into the stories of student athletes, coaches, future Dolphins, administration, and alumni. Make sure you hang out with the Dolphins by subscribing to youtube.com/wakeupcallDT for all of our Dolphin content. For more information, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com, and as always, Fins Up. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find the Bobcat Buzz all throughout the year. You will find the Bobcat Buzz exclusively here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, with student athletes, coaches, and administration of men's and women's soccer, men's and women's basketball, baseball, and esports, as well as some other specials that might come up along the way. So always, always, always find us here, and we cannot thank you enough for being a part of the show. To all of the student athletes, coaches, and administration for Bryan and Stratton College of Syracuse, for everything you do differently, so uniquely, and in such a great way. We appreciate you. We thank you. And I'm always proud to have them on the broadcast. So make sure you check it out by subscribing to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. And the BSC Syracuse tab will be there for you with the Bobcats. So we look forward to you connecting with them there. And of course, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com for more information. Go Bobcats. the Alfred University Saxons are here with you as exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Saxons every single Monday during Saxon time at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time with specials inside of the Presidential Perspective with President Mark Zupan of Alfred University, and with your Saxons in the Saxon Spotlight with student athletes, coaches, administration, and alumni. Find all our content by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt and clicking subscribe. For more information, go to gosaxons.com, and as the website tells you, go Saxons. With that being said, I want to thank Christy Salters, Martin, Pat Orr, and our special guest, John Moceyunas, for being a part of the broadcast today. John Moceyunas coming to us from Don King Productions and telling us stories about Don King and Muhammad Ali. So many great things today. Very much appreciate it. Big time shout out to our Jacksonville Jaguars joining me on the Prowl, our segment that I have done with the Jacksonville Jaguars for many years, and you can see my Jaguars teal microphone here in the studio. A big time thanks to Dewan Smoot, outside linebacker for the team, strong safety Rayshon Jenkins, defensive end Roy Robertson Harris, quarterback Trevor Lawrence, and I also want to give a big time thank you to linebacker Kaylavon Chason, as well as offensive tackle Anton Harrison, both joining the show for the first time ever, and to tight end Evan Engram for being back on the show, and of course to Avicolli's for the ingredients to success. Stand up for yourself. Don't be afraid. The only thing worse than not standing up for yourself, the only thing worse than being treated poorly is being treated poorly and keeping your mouth shut, right? So stand up for yourself, be respectful, be kind, and don't be anybody's doormat. Please, please be good to yourself and be good to others. Don't stoop to their level. Rise to yours. Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, X at Call DT, Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT.